District 204 Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Marilyn, will you please call roll?
Rob Wallace.
Present.
Member Nicodemus Jackson. Member Dr. Campbell. Here. Member Levin. Here. Member United Guy. Here. Member Kennedy.
Present.
Member Lopez. Here.
All right, thank you. As we rise and participate. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. All right. Next item is public participation. Do we have anyone signed up for tonight's first public comment session? The answer to that is no. Thank you, Marilyn. Before we begin, I just want to acknowledge the dedication of our school board. Our agenda is full tonight, and there was a lot of homework to complete and prepare, not only the agenda, but the work to review all the RFPs. This comes on the wheel. Many of our board members attend the Adjournment annual conference, July, that provided valuable feedback and professional development for our board. Brian Mellon, and ultimately we hopefully spend some quality time with our family and friends. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge that there's a lot going on, a lot of work being done to prepare for these meetings on the heels of a lot of other things. So thank you to everybody for your dedication and support for our board and our school district. So thank you. So the first topic of the agenda here is our strategic plan goal for update. Family and community partnerships. That's when we over back on. Thank you, President Bowles. Just as a little background, in June of 2022, the District 204 Board of Ed adopted a comprehensive strategic plan. This was developed with engagement from our entire school community and really looked at past performance, values, and anticipated future needs of the district. Our strategic plan includes 5 goals centered on student growth and achievement, learning environment supports, high-quality, diverse staff, family and community partnerships, and resource effectiveness and efficiencies. As we've said before, the board plays a critical role throughout each school year, ensuring that our plan continues to include those goals and strategies and priorities that honor the desires and needs of our school community. And throughout the year, our leadership team facilitates a discussion on each of the 5 goals with the board. We know back in October we looked at goal 3. In November we looked at goal 1. Tonight we're going to take a look at goal 4. And then in January we will look at goal 2. And February goal 5. So each of these discussions, including tonight, we're going to look at the specific goal. We're going to look at the aligned strategies. We're going to highlight some progress from our scorecard, acknowledge some areas of improvement. And then also we'll look at our action teams, which are made up of 20 to 25 staff members. They meet throughout each school year to provide oversight, to validate or challenge the goals in our plan, to set targets, to monitor progress, and then provide feedback on our priorities. So we're going to look at those priority lists as well that were developed for this year. And then that process all starts in the spring of each year and really culminates in June each year when our board actually formally adopts our priority list for each year. The other thing I say all the time, both at board meetings and in public, is there are no secrets with our strategic plan. Everything that we do, everything that we have done over the last 3 or 4 years is on the LP strategic plan website. This includes all the priority lists this year, but also the archived list from previous years, the strategies, all the community feedback that was collected to develop the plan is there, the scorecard metrics, theories as well. So probably way more information than anyone needs on that, but it's all accessible there. So as we will actually reach in the mid-year point of our year, which is crazy, and this is the 4th year of living our strategic plan, so we're going to once again take a dive here into goal 4, which is our family and community partnerships. So with So with goal 4 is really the partnerships we have with our families and our community. We, of course, want to partner with families and our community to support and expand learning opportunities for all students. We really break this down in 3 different ways. First of all, just in general, how are we collaborating and communicating with our community to improve collaboration and transparency? That's one arm of it. As we get into
third piece of Goal 4 is how do we partner with our business community or our community at large to create work-based learning opportunities or / internship opportunities or career pathway opportunities for our students. So those are really the three primary strategies included within Goal 4. Taking a look at our scorecard, I tried to fit this all on one page because I think it obviously it has all the scorecard metrics for Goal 4 on one page. And then it has three different columns. It has our baseline data from 21-22. It has our current, which the most current data we have for our scorecard around Goal 4 is the end of the 24-25 school year. And then our action teams, one of their roles is to create targets. So they create a target for each school year, but all the way back in 21-22, they also created a life of plan target. So they basically said at the end of 5 years, where do we want to be? That is the one target that we update each year. Because as we've either made progress or not made progress on a year-to-year basis, we want to take a look at that end of that life of plan target and update that. So I'll just highlight a couple of things here. Obviously, won't read it all to you. But just in the general communications that we send to our community, the board briefs and the principal message open rate, we've really seen some good engagement and good open rates on both of those. I consider that a highlight. I think the one area of growth that our team continues to work on is participation rate of parent-teacher conferences. This is a number that has continued to decrease over the last couple of years, and so we know that we need to get creative. And we were 34% participation in 21-22. We were 26.2%, in 24-25. So we'd love to see that number turn around and get back up. Another highlight, our performance on the Illinois School Report Card, one of the factors is our participation rate on the 5 Essential Survey. That's exactly why this is on our scorecard. Through a series of emails, text messages, and badgering people to take the survey, we've actually increased our numbers on that from 9% that first year to 26% last year. So we've seen some pretty good increases in that as well. I think there at the bottom, that freshman to sophomore college persistence rate and the 6-year college graduation rate, those are both provided to us by the NCAA Clearinghouse. They're also really old numbers, right? When you're talking about a 6-year college graduation rate, we're talking about the class of 2016 was our baseline rate, and even last year we were only to the class of 2019. But I think across the board, we've just not seen much movement in either one of those two numbers. Freshman to sophomore college persistence has been 94, 95% every year, which is a really high number, right? That means our students are going to college and they're coming back their sophomore year, essentially, a high percentage. And then same with that 6-year college graduation rate. We've been right around that 63 to 65% throughout that. So moving into our priority lists, and again, this is not something I'll read each slide, but we've kind of broken this down by strategy. So this first slide I'm showing these are all the priorities that our team, actually teams from really last April through June, because the action team creates these, and the way they create them is they look at the current year's priority lists, and then they take a look at what did we accomplish. More importantly, what didn't we accomplish? That becomes the starting point for next year's priority list. And then a variety of teams vet those all the way to the board table in June when you guys look at them and approve them. So this is all the strategies related to, all the priorities related to strategy 1. The communication tools and platforms, again, just trying to really get creative and try anything possible to get our community, whether it's parents, guardians, community members, to engage with all of our content. We've really made an effort these last couple of years to increase translation and accessibility through all of our various events, through all the different ways we share information. That's been a big push. And then as the board knows, we've talked about this several times, is just the community events and outreach is an important part of what we do, right? We know that we don't host one event and capture every parent, every community member that we want to. We know that on a week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year basis, we have to have a wide variety of events accessible to all of our different communities. Something that we really focused on, I think it was 2 years ago, was how do we make sure that parents who don't get the week-to-week emails or parents who don't have kids here, how do we engage with them? Because we know that we have 55,000 stakeholders in this area, and we want to make sure that everyone knows what's happening at LT, regardless of whether they have a student here. So that's been an important part. And then, of course, just continuing to produce video content as much as possible, because we know people love to watch videos now more than they like to read things. So that's been a big part as well. Moving into strategy 2, for our newer board members, the whole idea of career pathways was really kind of born in 2021 when the state of Illinois first put in the school requirement that every school would have at least one designated career pathway by 2025. So our team started working on that 4 years ago. The list here on the screen kind of tells you where we're at. We're obviously, if it far exceeded the one that we had to have in place by 2025. We have programs in education and entrepreneurship, computer programming, our aviation program is an approved pathway. We're working on radio broadcasting technology, culinary, apparel, and textiles, engineering, cosmetology, health sciences, automotive technology. Those are all the ones that we want to get in place here, either this year or very soon in the future. So that's been a big thing. And really the way we do that, I think the incubator or our entrepreneurship program is a great example of that, where we need people from our business community and our parent community to help mentor or to help coach our teams. And so our team is having conversations a lot with our business community to figure out how can we develop internships and work-based learning components to all these different these courses. So that's a big part. That last one, just collaborating with DEOS. So DEOS is the DuPage Area Occupation and Education System, which essentially is the oversight system for the Technology Center of DuPage, which is our career center. So we send about 40 to 60 students a year to TCD, and then obviously through LADSI as well, through their work-based learning programs. So that's a little highlight on some of the priorities in Strategy 2. And then in Strategy 3, this is all, how are we engaging with our 6 feeder schools to make sure students are ready for high school? The bottom area there talks about like placement process and some elective videos and all the different events and the one-pagers and the high school readiness document that we talked about here before. But with that, what I want to do is we wanted to highlight specifically our 8th grade to 9th grade. So we have obviously a large number of future Lyons who are currently sitting in 8th grade. And our team, Dr. Tyrell, Mr. Gardner, Mr. Eder, really do an awesome job of, more than anything, creating excitement for those students to become LT students at some point. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Dr. Tyrell, and they're going to highlight some of the things they do to make that happen.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Dr. Waterman. We're really excited to be able to share just a brief presentation on the transition to high school. And as Dr. Waterman shared here with me tonight, are Greg Gardner, South Campus Associate Principal, Drew Eder, Division Chair for Counseling and Student Supports, and then probably most importantly, sorry guys, student leaders Brandon Harris and Sarah Wiggins, who will present as well tonight. For Greg, Drew, and I, the work that we do with our incoming students and families is some of the most fun and exciting work that we do as part of our roles here at LT. The transition to high school begins in October of a student's 8th grade year and continues through their very first day of high school at Freshman Experience Day. Our job is to make the process as smooth as possible so that students and families feel excited about the LT experience, feel prepared for the start of high school, and feel confident that we are here to support them. We have made several adjustments to our events and communication over the last few years, and we're looking forward to sharing a brief update with all of you tonight. Under Drew and Greg's leadership, we truly believe that our transition process, events, communications, and overall experience sets the standard and is a positive one from start to finish. Tonight, we'll share the following within our presentation. Drew will share an overview of the transition process and timeline. Greg will share a bit about the major changes and enhancements of the transition process and events that have occurred over the course of the last few years. I'll share a bit about our communication priorities, which is a really important part of the process. Brandon, Sarah, and Greg will talk about our roadshow events, which are new and really fun. We'll share about our kickoff event, which is all about generating excitement about the LT experience, and Drew will give a glimpse of what our future freshman night is like, as well as highlights the component of Freshman Experience Day, which you all know is a traditional LT event. And we'll close by sharing some transition celebrations. So now Drew will share an overview of the process and timeline.
Thank you, Dr. Tyrell. So along with our introductory welcome letter to each class, we send what we call our fridge sheet. And when we developed this, we literally envisioned this sheet being on people's refrigerator for the duration of the winter. The sheet is a one-pager, and that walks one through the series of events that we offer for exploration, course selection, enrollment, and eventually their first day of their freshman year. Programming begins in November with our 8th grade open house that builds excitement and school spirit. Moves on to a virtual webinar to review the nuts and bolts of course selection. As Dr. Tyrell mentioned, our LT Roadshow allows us to get into the middle schools and start to create some relationships and intimacy in the conversation with students. Future Freshman Night is a great program in January that really helps to make sure that families and students have all of the information that they need based on their own personal experiences. And we've strategically planned multiple events for students and families to be both at South Campus, as well as for our LT family and members to come to the middle schools for more personal conversations. I'm going to pass it over to Greg so he can highlight some of the major enhancements as well.
Thank you, Drew. Over the past 5 years, I'd say one of the biggest shifts that we've made was moving away from a single, large, all-in-one event in January and instead creating a series of opportunities throughout the year. This allows us to connect with students and families when the timing is right and to create more meaningful interactions along the way. One of these impactful enhancements have been the addition of our November and January roadshows. These small group visits to associate schools give 8th graders a comfortable, low-pressure space to hear directly from our LT students, ask questions, and begin forming a connection with our community before they come to our on-campus event the following week. The November Roadshow and the kickoff event work together to give students an early introduction to school spirit, belonging, and incredible opportunities LT has to offer. We intentionally bring them into the culture of LT earlier in the year so that they can better picture themselves here at LT, and so families exploring multiple high school options feel well informed as they make their decisions. As Mr. Eder shared, our expanded calendar has also strengthened our course selection visits. By the time we sit down to talk about classes, students have already have had multiple touch points with our staff and our student leaders. They've heard from ambassadors, they've learned about electives, they've seen the videos, they've had time to talk about choices available to them, which means they come to those meetings with the course selection more confident and prepared to make those decisions. A major part of this improvement has been the evolution of our student ambassador program. 5 years ago, ambassadors played a very different role at LT. Now, Mr. Eder provides some intentional training so they are prepared not only to greet families at school events, but to be present, to lead tours, to present at meetings, to facilitate circles, and authentically share their LT experience that they've had while they're on campus. And year after year, families tell us that hearing from our students is one of the most meaningful parts of this entire transition process. Mr. Eder will share a little bit more about this shortly. At the center of all of this continued improvement, several times a year we meet with our associate principals to gather feedback from them and make adjustments as needed so we can ensure that we're meeting the needs of each specific class that's coming to us. And finally, we continue to expand access for our multilingual families. This includes multilingual specific events, breakout sessions at our on-campus events, translation services at all of our big events, intentionally designing bilingual materials that all families receive, that it's not just a secondary handout, but that we're incorporating that in every part of our design, from our website to our handouts to our maps and things like that. We want to make sure that we're being proactive in our outreach to ensure that our families, regardless of language, feels informed, welcomed, and confident as they enter the LT community. Now Dr. Tyrell will speak more about our communication priorities.
Our partnership with the associate school principals has been absolutely critical in supporting our students and families through the transition process. We meet 4 times a year, which was critical in establishing the relationships when we all first started here and in maintaining those relationships over the last few years. We share all communications, which we'll be sending home with the principals. Oftentimes, they are the individuals who get the initial questions from families because they're comfortable reaching out to them. They have that relationship already. So we want principals to feel comfortable answering any question that might surface, so they have all of those communications in advance. They're fantastic partners in communication. Oftentimes, they share and reiterate messages that we send in their weekly communications to students and families as well. All in all, I think this is pretty impressive. Members of our team see the principals 8 to 10 times a year through our formal articulation and transition process. And that's for road shows, course selection meetings, incoming class transition meetings. That's a lot of contact that members of our team are making with the principals throughout the year, and the lines of communication are open all throughout the year, both formally and informally. With our incoming families, we aim to have clear communication throughout the transition process. We do this by sending out timely email communications regarding events and resources, as well as posting important information, documents, and resources on our incoming class website. The website is truly, we say this all the time, a hub of important information for incoming students and families. We add communications, presentations, important links, contact information, event details, and then course selection resources such as the APG and our elective videos onto that website as well. We try to gradually release and post that information so that it's not overwhelming at the beginning of the transition process. We want families to be engaging with the material, the content, and the resources that are important at that time of the transition process. The website isn't just a helpful resource for our incoming students and families. The associate school principals share all the time that it's a resource that they use as they're engaging in transition conversations with families as well. Additional information is communicated to special education and ML families so they feel prepared throughout the transition process, especially in instances where there are additional processes, meetings, or events that may be included in support of students transitioning to LT. On the bottom of the screen right now, in addition to seeing screenshots of our website and our elective videos, you can see a couple of documents. The transition document was created by Drew and his team last year to give an even better glimpse of not just the transition process, but then extending that transition process throughout freshman year. What does it look like during freshman year? And we created this partly based on feedback from the associate school principals and then with some student voice as well. Whenever we go out to our road shows, we ask students, what are you thinking about at this point in the transition? What are you nervous about? What are you excited about? What do you want to learn more about? And we included some of that information within our transition guide as well. And then the third document is one of the handouts that we send home when we go to the roadshow. All of the roadshow resources that we hand or show students, we make available for parents and guardians as well. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the roadshow, which is something that we really are excited about. So we regularly say that our students play a huge role, our current students play a huge role in the transition process, and Drew will close tonight's presentation by sharing just a little bit more about our Student Ambassador program. But we also wanted you to have the chance to hear from a couple of our student leaders about their experience on the roadshow. Sarah and Brandon are 2 of the students who went with us to our associate schools on the October roadshow, which is all about generating excitement about LT. We think it's valuable for us to bring our students to the associate schools so that our future students can see the excitement that our students have for the LT experience and all of the opportunities available. Each student, we bring about 10 to 15 on each roadshow. Each student has a different presentation style, highlights different aspects of our programming, but the goal is always the same. Share their love for LT, generate excitement about the LT experience, and encourage our incoming students to start thinking about where their interests and passion lie. First, Sarah will highlight what her, Brandon, and the other student leaders did on the roadshow, and then Brandon will take you inside Friday Night Lights as he shares an example of something that a leader would share on the roadshow to generate excitement and show the array of co-curricular offerings. Sarah?
Hi, good evening. I'm here to give just a little overview of what I and my fellow student leaders did on the roadshow and our goal of visiting these middle schools. As a representative of LT, us juniors and seniors returned to our former middle schools to present to the class of 2030 on what they will expect for their freshman kickoff night, which took took place a few weeks after we initially visited these schools. We showed them our hype video created by Lyons Den, and our presenters talked about core classes, possible elective classes, and extracurriculars that they could become interested in as freshmen. Our presentation style varied, with some people presenting to an entire room and other people going into small classrooms and being able to talk with kids one-on-one or in a small group. Overall, I think we were able to get these 8th graders extremely excited about the LT culture they are coming into, with the sports clubs options and the classes available. We talked about TAB, healthcare, child development, business, and STEM, which really was able to connect with every single type of kid in that room. And when there was free time, I also encouraged kids to go onto the LT website and look at all the clubs available and ask me questions about ones that they found interesting. A lot of people asked about sports, wrestling, and I think we were able to find our new mascots for the upcoming years.
Thanks, Sarah. Brandon.
Good evening, everyone. How are we?
Good.
Good to hear. It could be better. Now, before I begin, I want to ask you all another thing. Raise your hand if, when you felt like you were going into high school, you were prepared for the change. That's exactly what I wrote in my script. I was hand to go up. Now, raise your hand again if you knew what the activities at your high school were going to be when you got there. Again, 0 hand. Oh, we got a hand.
My father taught there. That's the only That's cheating. That's cheating.
Yeah, that's cheating.
That don't count.
Right. Well, what this hand-raising activity shows is, like you guys, a lot of 8th graders don't know about the scope of the activities they can do throughout high school, and specifically, I get to talk about LT activities to you guys. LT has some of the most varied and, dare I say, greatest clubs, sports, and activities in the entire state. We have over, I want to say 200, I think, give or take. And there is a massive culture of involvement just due to how many clubs, activities, and sports there are. Nobody really leaves the building at 3:05. Most people will always be in some sort of activity because that's just what's kind of expected. People are always encouraging you to join things with specific events like co-curricular night, where future freshmen can come in and look at all the clubs. You don't necessarily have to sign up for a thing, but it's great to really just put into perspective how much there is out there. Now another hand-raising activity. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
Okay. Raise your hand if you like football. Right, because I'm actually not looking at the people who are raising their hands. I'm looking at the people who didn't raise their hands. Because what I'm about to tell you is crazy. FNL is so much more than just the football team, if you really think about it. Specifically at LT, as many as 9 organizations also create the experience and amazing tradition of LT Friday Night Lights. And I get to talk about some of them to you guys. So my unbiased favorite is the competitive cheerleading team, which I am a member of. This is my 3rd year of doing LT Comp Cheer. We cheer on the sidelines during the fall and compete in the winter. And when people try out in the spring, we really like to emphasize that even if you're not as experienced as a 3rd or 4th year vet, you always have a place to learn and absorb as much as you can to inevitably try out. When I was a freshman, I had no experience in cheer, and also as a freshman, well, technically an 8th grader going into freshman year, I felt like I was going to have no friends. But the great thing is, once I put myself out there, even before I technically made the team, I already knew, I want to say about 20 people that I could totally see in any of my classes, talk to, say hi in the hallways, just so I didn't feel like a total stranger. And once I tried out freshman year, I made it. I immediately had 23 friends because I had 23 people on my team, and we spent the whole year together. And that's not just a cheer thing. That is an any activity thing. I think that's the greatest part about activities, is that regardless of what the club or sport does, it truly at the end of the day is about that community that you find within them. And now I'm on varsity, and now I'm a junior, and I get to talk about all the other amazing clubs and activities that these 8th graders can join. Sideline cheer is another wonderful group you'll see performing at football games. They are like us, as in like they cheer on the sidelines in the fall, but they're no cut, so they're even less selective. And so truly anybody has a spot to try out, make some friends, have some fun, make some memories.
They actually, Brandon, that they are a cut
They're
for,
cut
just,
now?
yeah, so just,
Oh, so
just
they're
wanna,
cut
yeah.
now.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Keep going. You're doing a
For
great job.
music people, we've got the incredible Marching Lions, which are always in sync. They are great. And Color Guard, who play music the entire game, and the directors are amazing and love to teach. Poms is who I like to consider Comp Cheer's blood family. They're the dance team, and they are so talented, like incredibly talented. They are like us, where they do sideline in the fall, and then they compete in the winter as well. And they even compete with us at conference. If you don't have anything to do on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, check us out at Hinsdale South. And they're an LT halftime favorite for sure. And I can't forget WLTL, our very own broadcast and radio club, who live stream the entire game and also commentate the entire game. They're really slept on. Their commentary is great, even though I know nothing about football. Biz Concessions, who sells the food and drinks in the concession stand, as well as a shout out to all the Tabbies of Tabbouleh, which is the yearbook club. They get the most amazing action shots. And another big props to our incredible student trainers who take care of student athletes all year. And we can't forget about all the students that are showing up, and specifically the students in Lyons Den, who bring all of the energy and all of the hype that generates people to actually come to the game. So, the best part about this, and what I really want to get into, is that I've only talked about, 9 activities. I said we have how many? Over 200? So 9 out of 200, there is a huge just variety of things you can do at LT. I really think that is so special that a lot of other high schools don't necessarily have, is that there truly is a place for anyone and everyone. Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
As you can see, Sarah and Brandon are awesome representatives of LT, and like I said, when we bring our groups of students out, they share about all types of different experiences. And when we're in schools with 4 or 5 classrooms, every classroom might be a little bit different based on the student leaders who are in there, but we're getting our students to start to think, future students to think about, I want to do that, I want to be that, I want to be a leader, I want to be involved. Wow, you have that, and it's just a really special and unique experience.
Yeah, again, thank you, Sarah and Brandon. Go ahead.
I like how the step team does perform too at some of the football games. The steppers, LT steppers.
Got to give the steppers a shout out, right?
Yeah.
I think it's funny as we bring students like Sarah and Brandon to the road show. I remember Brandon said we're at Park. You can't see the first picture is actually him presenting. I think at Park this year, and he talks about he builds all this stuff up and he makes a. I really don't even like football, right? And there's so many students, right? Because they're watching the hype video, which is, again, it's a lot of football, things like that. So many students relate to that. Like, they may not be football people, but, when Brandon shares about all of the other activities that are just participate in Friday night and make it fun. And it was really powerful for me when I heard Brandon share, like, you were coming to football games, not even to watch football freshman year. You're just coming to support the cheer team on the sideline. And, it's just a great testament to, how our students have these unique experiences that make it their LT experience. And so, that's really the November roadshow. How do we build that excitement? How do we connect? I think one thing this year that was really special, this year we really tried to be intentional on the students we brought back to the associate schools. And so we were pulling student leaders and student recommendations from our principals and trying to get them back to their schools. And that kind of decision came when, I think last year we had one student who was at Highlands, and like the whole staff came out and were giving the kid hugs, high fives, and just kind of seeing the response from the staff and the students from the school. I was like, let's try to widen that. And so we brought students from the school, and this year it was very evident. Teachers, students were coming up for hugs, wanting to talk, take photos with the students. And so it was really powerful to just kind of see when you bring students back to their middle schools, that impact that they have. And I think that really does help our 8th graders see themselves as LT students in the future, and having somebody to connect with and recognize and feel as if they walked in their shoes as well. Now, the November Roadshow, really that experience. The second part of this comes in January when we do our second roadshow, and that really shifts the focus. That visit is centered on electives, our pathways, and academic opportunities. We bring students that are members of our capstone programs who can speak how their early course choices really shaped their path through LT and have also shaped their decisions as they think about what they're going to do after LT. Their message is always consistent: explore, try new things, and use your freshman year to discover what inspires you. And again, they give great examples, kind of like what you heard tonight, in their experiences in that elective program that they have. So by the time the students arrive to future freshman night, they already have a foundation that helps them ask deeper questions and make more informed decisions during course registration. Overall, taking the show on the road has significantly improved how prepared 8th graders are when they come to our major events. They arrive with context, with a completely different level of comfort and engagement. And that brings us to our first major event, the kickoff event. When we redesigned our transition process, one of the most strategic changes that we made was shifting our welcome and co-curricular components from the January event to November. Families are having conversations about their transition to LT, and some are exploring their high school options far earlier than in the past. And we wanted to make sure LT was a part of those decision-making conversations. The purpose of the kickoff event is to immerse families in the LT experience. That is often the first major interaction with us, and we want to make sure that they walk away truly understanding what makes LT so special. The evening includes a welcome from our administrative team. We have a musical performance by one of our choirs. We also have highlight student voice by having 2 students present about their transition to high school. They share about what they were concerned with, how the transition went. They share about what they found at LT. Usually have a lot of stories that kind of talk about that transition. And so it definitely is one of the most appealing parts of the night. We hear from our families that the honesty that they hear from students who have walked in their shoes not too long ago has been incredibly powerful as they think about their transition. We've also moved the entire co-curricular fair to November, so again, they can explore all of our clubs, our activities, our athletic programs that first night, and they just kind of think about, what do they see themselves doing. And again, we have our student ambassadors lead guided tours and support families taking self-guided tours so they can get comfortable with the South Campus layout and facilities, which we hear often from our 8th grade families. They just want to get in the space and just kind of tour around. The core message we want families to hear is that there is truly something for everyone at LT. Whether a student is passionate about athletics, the arts, academics, or exploring something brand new, we want them to leave the kickoff event feeling welcomed, excited, and confident that LT is a place where they can belong. At this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Eder, who's going to share more about our future freshman night.
So our second event at South Campus is Future Freshman Night, which is intended to ensure that families feel prepared for every step of the way of choosing their courses for their first year of high school. The redesign of this event has 2 specific aspects. The first is our immersive elective fair, and the second is what we describe as our Choose Your Own Adventure breakout session schedule, which allows families to personalize their experience during that event based on their family needs and situations. One of the challenges for a school with a list of electives, with elective courses as extensive as we have at LT, is finding a way to inform students about what information and experiences each class includes. The immersive elective fair was inspired by the layout and experience of the Chicago Auto Show. Just like the attendees of the auto show are guided through the cars on the floor of McCormick Place, our families enter our field house and are guided through the teachers and students from every elective course available in their freshman year. Teachers create displays, they bring examples of student work, and students engage with one another about their experiences to promote elective course opportunities. After a brief welcome, families are then free to navigate the breakout sessions. Sessions highlighting the AP and dual credit course opportunities, information for first-time LT families, and details about special education support at LT are just a few examples. All sessions are combined in a session offered in Spanish by a bilingual school counselor and our ML coordinator. All programs and breakout sessions are recorded and posted to that LT Hub website, so families can watch sessions that they weren't able to attend if they wish to do so. The self-directed design and the all-hands-on-deck approach from elective teachers, administrators, student leaders, and many others allows for a personalized experience that would most think is impossible at a school the size of LT. The day these 8th graders officially become LT students is an honored tradition, and while Freshman Experience Day has received a facelift, we have been careful to maintain an important aspect, that keeping our current LT students at the heart of the program is essential. Some early feedback that we heard from students after our first year was their interest in meeting their teachers, walking their schedules, and finding out what other students will be in their classes. In order to do this, we moved the date of the program to a teacher attendance day so that every staff member was on campus and able to participate in the welcoming our newest class of Lyons. Student leaders continue to take a leadership role as community building circle facilitators, spirit training leaders, and many more roles essential to helping 900 plus 14-year-olds navigate a new building with all the excitement of their first day of school. An important aspect of so many of these programs is our LT Student Ambassador program that Dr. Tyrell promotes each spring. We carried out this series of programs for 1 year before we realized that we needed our own stable of student volunteers who were eager to serve as tour guides, speakers, role models, and much more. The fact that this invitation goes out each year keeps the group open to every sophomore, junior, and senior in the building, and who is looking to share their experience for LT and to roll out the red carpet for the next group of 8th graders. We currently have a stable of 300 plus students who within the sending of an email, I receive about 30 responses for volunteers. So it's a wonderful group of kids who, as you hear, really make these programs and create the special experiences for our students. So I'll hand it over to Dr. Tyrell to share a few other
Those
thoughts.
student ambassadors will be on campus tomorrow
Yep.
for the
Oh, yeah.
community open
Nice.
house, so we'll have.
We'll be ready to
many-
go.
yeah.
So just a few celebrations. We regularly receive positive feedback from parents and guardians regarding the communication and focus of our events. And as Greg shared, something that's been a huge celebration for us has been the enhanced student and family engagement that has occurred at our kickoff and future freshman night events with the addition to the roadshow. We go out and we feel like we're preparing our incoming students to engage appropriately with teachers, advisors, student leaders, ask the right questions. We write them some questions if they're not sure what to ask. We write some questions for them to consider asking. And we've observed, and our teachers and sponsors have observed, increased engagement and two-way communication at those events after incorporating the roadshow. We also incorporate student voice, as I've shared, and feedback throughout the process. So throughout the roadshow experience, we give them an exit ticket and we ask, what are you excited about? What are you nervous about? What do you want to learn more about? And then we tailor communications, the website, and even presentations to answer some of the frequently asked questions that are in their mind as they're navigating the process. And as I shared, much of the transition guide was developed based on their feedback. Earlier, I spoke about the enhanced relationships and collaboration with associate school principals. This occurs throughout the transition process, throughout the year, but then throughout the summer, as well as Greg, Drew, and the freshman class AP meet with the principals to talk about student success and supports. And we have really found these individual meetings where we talk about supports that might be needed very valuable as the class transitions into LT. The events and enhancements are a celebration in and of themselves, but another huge celebration to note is a couple of data points that we think really shows that students are thriving throughout their freshman year, which is really the extension of the transition process. Last year, 98.7% of students in the freshman class were on track at the end of their freshman year. That's by state definition. More were back on track by the start of their sophomore year. And last year, 88.8% of last year's freshman class participated in at least one co-curricular activity, with many participating in more than one. And that number's higher if we count special event attendance. The transition process is a very exciting time for students and families, but we also know it is a time where feelings of nerve may surface, questions come up, and some things are simply unknown. And to use the words as I close of one of our 9th grade counselors, Miss Miller, we want families and students to know you've got this and we've got you. And that's the main goal. We want you to feel prepared, but we want them to know that we are all here for them throughout the process. And then, of course, once they officially become LT students. So we will take any questions that you might have. And thank you. And thanks to our awesome students. You got two of our best here tonight. Sarah and Brandon are exceptional representatives.
Yeah,
exceptional.
Amazing, amazing.
That is an overview of Goal 4 with obviously a deeper dive into strategy too.
Yeah.
So what questions does the board have?
I mean, I was just taking notes because first of all, I mean, I'm blown away, and I really appreciate the biggest takeaways I've got is that, you know, as I've sat here at the table and we've been talking about how we want to change or adapt this process and reach people sooner, it seems as though like the two big takeaways are that you're getting access to our students sooner and getting in there with them more frequently too. So instead of like compounding all kinds of content and throwing at them at one time in one event, that's all you get. You've broken this out into an opportunity to have more meaningful connections and to be able to provide valuable information that they can hopefully process and, you know, absorb and understand in smaller chunks. So I really appreciate that, and especially too in being able to reach multilingual families and finding special opportunities that are a little more unique and are a little more dedicated and inclusive too of bringing people from different perspectives to the table.
Thank you.
That's really huge. And I guess my question is a couple of things, just really quick. Is Freshman Experience Day, because it has changed a lot since my kids were participating in it, is that, and I love that it's the staff's, and that they're doing things that just feel really like a mini day one, you know, really kind of getting into it. And I think that's super critical for easing a lot of anxiety that students have coming to such a big school. But is that a full day?
Yeah, it goes till 1 o'clock or 1:05, and we break up the day. The beginning, they travel in groups to 4 different large group sessions, so they have the opportunity. We think it's really important that they connect with their team, counselor and social worker. They hear from our assistant principal and meet all of our student assistants. They go through a spirit training, which Greg and our Lyons Den students lead with some of our other staff members. And then I'm missing, and then our student facilitators lead circle conversations. So we've shared about restorative practices. We think it's really cool that every single freshman on their first day of high school is sitting in a community building circle. So they do that in the morning. Break for lunch, we serve 1 billion pizzas in our South Campus field house. And then in the afternoon, they run through their schedule, very brief period, 7 minutes. But if you ask students throughout the process, they want to know who's in their classes. They want to know how to navigate the building. How do they get from point A to point B? And they come in Monday in such a better spot, navigating the building, meeting their teachers, seeing their classmates. And having the chance to do that on Freshman Experience Day. So it's evolved and it's changed, and we think we have a really, really great day that balances traditional elements and fun, but also gives them a few things that they need to feel good coming back with all our freshmen and sophomores on Monday.
And some of those like traditional elements too, would that be things like the expectations of like how we use the learning environment? I'm thinking about like, you know, a lot of chatter sometimes about like when, you know, using a cell phone or not using a cell phone, like is that stuff that's covered in Freshman Experience? Maybe it's covered in other areas too, but I'm just kind of curious about that.
No, it's covered. Our APs have the opportunity to present to students, so they talk about, you know, our culture and our climate and behavioral expectations and norms and agreements that we have as a community. So cell phones, attendance, like everything that you kind of need to know as a student and you're navigating your day-to-day that's maybe outside of the classroom. They share about lunch and buses and commuting and all of those things. So they get all of that information, and that's stuff that we share with parents and guardians as well.
And then one more question too regarding the Future Freshman Night. That format that you talked about, when did we change that over? Did that just happen this year? Or was that 2 years now that we've been doing it? It's a couple of years? Whoever.
This is gonna be our
Future Freshman Night?
Third year.
Third year
okay.
now with our future freshmen when we separated it.
I love it.
To move it to kick off in
August
November.
of '23 was the first year.
Okay, yeah, I was curious about that, but I mean, I think this is really helpful and fantastic, and I love that, again, these smaller moments when we take something that's just so big and overwhelming and goes over so many people's busy heads and things that they're doing, to give them an opportunity to be able to talk to and to attend some of these topics. Are they able to attend more than one, or is it really the time only allows for them to choose one?
We have a few sessions that run 2 sessions long, so our AP talk
Okay.
is one of the longer sessions, our college talk is a longer session, but then we have the breakout sessions that are a little shorter that they can go to as well, so.
Oh, good. Okay, so it isn't like just pick one and that's it.
Right, yeah, so you get a couple options there.
Great.
And we actually, Carrie, got some feedback last year that some families would have liked to attend one more, so we're adding one more time slot at the end. It only extends the evening 15 minutes
That's
for for some of our presenters, so we're adding one more time slot. And then as Drew shared, we do voiceover presentations that we post on the website for those that maybe can't make it to everything they want to go to, or they just want to go back, right? It's a lot of information. They might want to go back, so those have been really helpful for families as well.
Kira, you really hit the nail on the head right there when you talk about like the one big event, because when we were planning that 5 years ago, we were planning that future freshman night and just looking at everything was loaded into that night and every location South Campus was used, and it was just, you're running from event to event. It just was so much, and so breaking it apart just seemed natural to be able to make it more manageable and make the experience more authentic. And then that, like I said, the focus at both nights are it's so focused that you could see the kids getting more out of that, and our families, especially at future freshman night, we're really only talking about classes and electives and course registration in January. So they really have the freedom to think about what do you want to sign up to take next week when you're meeting with your counselor. So it's really helped sharpen that focus, especially when it comes down to course selection, which is like a week or two after that event in January.
Right. That's awesome. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate that.
I don't have a question, but I just want to say thank you because having participated in this with my students for the last few years, it doesn't just sound exciting when you guys talk about it and present it. Like, it really is, and it's so impactful, and it's just great to see the evolution of it, and it really does make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Nice work.
Yeah, I would only say that the one highlight that I pulled out of this, besides Sarah and Brandon, so again, thank you to you both. That was awesome to hear your perspective on it. But it really highlights what I heard resonate throughout most of what you were presenting, is that you were getting that input from the students themselves, whether it was through the transition guide that you developed or the conversations that you're having at the school. I think that is so incredibly valuable to ask the kid, what are you looking for? What do you need to feel comfortable? So I wanted to highlight that. And then I guess my question is, through these enhancements with transitions, do we anticipate, I mean, we're, 88% participation rate from students in clubs and activities? Do we anticipate that what we're doing now will increase that rate even higher, A, and B, maybe even more importantly, will it engage the students who are typically not engaging into our clubs and activities?
Yeah.
Sorry, part 3. There's
Yeah.
a C. C is, and if so, do
My
you have
glasses
data?
up for
I
one
know.
and two.
Do you have data? Or will there be data that will collect to see if this makes any impact on that?
Yeah, good question on that. So we have our overall percentage of participation is 84%, which is extremely high. 88 was last year's freshman class. One piece of data that we do share with our associate schools is participation broken down by students, by their associate school, because they're always looking at what opportunities they might have to get students connected even earlier. 84 is pretty high. It is one of the highest percentages of anywhere that doesn't have an activity period during the school day. Our next kind of steps there are really engaging the non-participants and figuring out ways that we can continue to individualize and support and connect them to something that they might be interested in. For those who can, sometimes there's barriers, to participation, but figuring out how we can engage all of our non-participants is probably our next step in progress. We've talked about, we get informal feedback from students and families. We've talked even this afternoon about formal feedback from families about the transition process, like what has been helpful, what would have been helpful. So, there's certainly some opportunities for us to garner even more formal feedback about the full process.
Okay. Very good.
I have a question. Are there things at North Campus that children at South Campus don't have access to as far as clubs? And does it make sense, if that's the case, to do kind of a smaller version of transitions for kids that are coming over to North Campus to say, hey, this is what is now available to you that you didn't have the last 2 years? That would also maybe help with some kids that haven't been active in other programs.
Yeah, I think most of our clubs are available freshmen 9 through
All the
12,
way,
right?
okay.
But sometimes they meet at one campus, which can be a barrier, although we have different transportation systems and structures to be able to get students there. What you bring up is important, right? A junior kind of transition, and our students talk about that a little bit. Like, here at LT, different than one building, one campus high schools, our students have a couple of transition processes, and they've talked about the transition to junior year. So more opportunities for co-curricular recruitment and sharing information with students as they come here is something. We've done some small-scale co-curricular kind of tables in the lunchroom, or clubs have promoted at our junior, what do we call it, junior drop-in day. But we can get better in that area to try to reconnect those that are maybe transitioning over to North. And then, of course, there's some of our clubs that are more for upperclassmen, but those are few and far between. Most of them are available to 9/12.
Thank you.
That's a really good idea. I am going to just double down on just thank you, because this is incredible. It is night and day from 5 years ago, my first experience going through all this with my oldest. So it's just phenomenal to see how you've broken everything down into bite-sized pieces. You've enabled consistent feedback, and you're using that feedback and customizing the information on an ongoing basis. That's incredible. It's a lot of work, and thank you, because that, yes.
Yeah, Greg and-
We know that it is an immense amount of work to be ongoing,
But it's such an important time, and I shared at the beginning, like Greg, Drew, and I, this is some of the most fun that we have in our jobs, and those two have really, under their leadership, this process has evolved. And I love the takeaways, because those are the takeaways. Bite-sized, engagement throughout the year, more connections, focused events that don't give too much at any one time, but encourage students and families to think about those things that are relevant and pertinent at that time. And they've redesigned it, and they've done it with student and family and staff feedback in mind, which is important, because this is a community's process. So thank you.
I did have two takeaways. One, additional takeaways, I should say. I've connected with a couple of board members at some of the elementary feeder schools, and I think they would really appreciate a copy of this presentation. Just for them to know what is actually happening and how they're being engaged, because there might be a little disconnect there. So that was one thing. And then the second thing, on the scorecard, I'm not sure if we're limited on what we can capture, or if there's not this particular scorecard, sorry, for this Goal 4 scorecard, which was page 12, I think, in our deck. Because LT is just so diverse, and to Brandon and Sarah's points, we're just incredible with how much we offer. Is there a possibility of expanding this scorecard and capturing the additional career pathway success rate? So there's quite a bit of focus on college graduation and freshman, sophomore college persistence, those very critical metrics. However, I think we're missing the career pathway opportunities, and how are we measuring that success?
Yeah,
So,
we could look at that. Yep. So really just like a metric of how many students complete a career pathway or something, or like to that point? right?
Yes, and/or trade school,
Certification program.
Oh, like in
certification
general
programs.
CTE. Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, like those that choose opposite college path.
Right, yep. Make a note of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great job, thank you so much.
You took your glasses back off, but I just want to say, no, you're fine.
These are
You're all-
Blu-rays.
I just want to say thank you, that's all. I know that's, everybody said everything. I echo all those words. You guys are doing a great job. Thanks to the student ambassadors. I mean, it's hard to go back to your old roots, and, but thank you so much.
Thank
So
you.
can take your
Thank you.
glasses.
Kids do an awesome job.
They should.
Well, I know it's a shared responsibility among many, so thank you to everybody that has been involved in that process. I agree, it's certainly come a long way, and I think it's reaping its benefits over the years, so. Okay, any other questions, comments? Before we move on, we are going to be running a little bit behind schedule for those who are here for our later part of our evening. However, these are important topics that we need to spend our time talking about. So our next item is our Press 120 policy review and updates. Turn it over to Dr. Waterman.
Yeah, just real quickly, obviously the board knows, we subscribe to Press. Thank you, guys, appreciate it. We subscribe to Press. We received the latest Press issue 120 in late October. These, as they always do, include changes related to state federal law, regulations, current case law. They could be 5-year reviews or draft updates or rewritten policies somewhere under one of those umbrellas. All these policies fit. We always request that Jennifer Rosenberg from Hodges reviews them, provides recommendations, and then also attend the meeting, so she's here tonight. We have a total of 33 policies up for review. So what you're seeing in your packet is the recommendation from not only press, but the recommendation from the board's law firm and the recommendation from the leadership team in terms of the policy that we believe you guys should adopt in a couple weeks. But with that, I'll turn it over to President Alborz to facilitate the discussion.
So, and I think the way that we've done this in the past, we've just gone through each one of them. I think based on the recommendation from our attorneys, I'm looking at that memo in terms of numbering. So if everybody's comfortable doing it that way, we'll just continue that process. So the first one is policy 2:120 board member development. Policy and footnotes. A lot of these I think are just very minor changes with nothing to add, but the recommendation is to adopt that policy. Any questions, concerns on that one? Okay. Policy 2:150 committees, requiring parent-teacher advisory committee guidelines for reciprocal reporting to address both criminal and civil offenses committed by students is recommended to adopt. Any questions, concerns on that? Yep.
I did have a question. And Jennifer, I don't know if this exists somewhere and I just didn't locate it, but is there clarification on civil offenses and what that entails?
That's a very good question, because in part, when that was added to the statute, that's a question that a lot of us asked, and there is no clarification regarding it. So if you actually go to the provision of the school code, they simply just inserted "and civil" after criminal, being the role that the parent-teacher advisory committee and, and the district are to work on together. Because one of the questions it raises too is then, understandably from criminal, you're able to get that information from law enforcement. That is not necessarily always information that you're directly able to obtain, for example, like I said, from a law enforcement agency. And so really what this is something that you're gonna have to look at, and we're looking to, whether it's gonna come from IASB or potentially ISB, to provide some additional guidance on how that parent-teacher advisory committee is then going to work together to have that. So your reciprocal reporting agreements, as districts start updating them, is going to include that, but then you're right, ultimately how we are learning about it is going to be somewhat more challenging, because civil things are not always things that are readily available, and we certainly aren't kind of necessarily combing, court, filings or dockets like that. But I think going back to the legislative history, some of that is just that we don't simply want to be potentially missing information that we need to know about students that would allow us to serve them. So again, how we go about finding that information is going to be more challenging. But no, there isn't anything more there than simply the insertion in the legislation itself.
So would you say that it's almost to be determined by the actual district?
It is going to be, and we're hoping we're gonna get some guidance as to what is it that ISB is thinking that, that they are going to be looking for, or giving guidance to how districts will go about doing that. I think IASB often, fills part of that role too, when we look to what that's gonna look like ultimately.
And the second part to the question was, and I know it's reciprocal reporting, therefore, is there a timeline as to when those reports that go from the school to law enforcement are null and void?
I would have to look specifically at your reciprocal reporting agreement. I haven't done that. Actually, Heather Brickman in our office works with the districts with an audit specifically as it relates to that. But that's part of the time frame of that. One, it is typically ongoing when there are more immediate events, and then there are other ongoing reports that kind of happen throughout the year. But we can look into that specific timeline if there is one included in your existing reciprocal reporting.
Meaning that once a student graduates, the report is basically
right, it's only related to current existing students,
that's what I was
as we need to know.
Okay, thank you.
Just so the board knows too, the last time we did a complete revamp of our intergovernmental agreements with both LaGrange and Western Springs was spring of '24, just about a year and a half ago. We're currently in the process of doing another revamp right now because of the student ticketing legislation that took effect July 1. So I anticipate bringing new agreements back to the board probably in the spring. It's like April, May, June, sometime in that timeframe.
Would that have any impact on what we're looking at now?
there may be some things not necessarily specific to this, but actually some of the other policies and more related to some of the, was the law enforcement agreement section is now kind of your law enforcement, the agency one, that's board policy 7:150, which is also on the list. There are some updates there that may need to be considered. Although that may be more in your procedures, and I don't mean to jump ahead, but more in your procedures related to interfacing with different agencies rather than specifically in your reciprocal reporting agreements. But it might be something worth looking at since and I know, I chatted with Heather, I know that they're kind of open and under review right now, so that's a process you're going through.
Okay, thank you.
And then I'm just gonna ask the follow-up question, because I think I ask this every time we go through the process of this, but, so, you're saying, Jennifer, that it would probably be, though it's an undefined term that they've just added, it's still in our best interest in order to keep up with the press policy updates.
Yes.
In the law.
Yes, because so the law was changed.
Right,
And so
okay.
we want your board policy to
Okay.
reflect the legal requirements.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that we're clear about that, and, yeah, and thank you, Joya, for asking that question, because that was one of my questions too, like, how do we define that? And I just did like a Google search for it, and that terminology doesn't really help us out at all in this case, so, hopefully they'll be able to provide us more clarity around this soon.
Yes.
Okay. Policy 2:270, discrimination and harassment on the basis of race, color, and national origin prohibited. Recommendation to adopt. Questions, concerns on that? Addition, finalizing the citation of the Racism Free School Law, IL 105 ILCS, right, and the Racism Free Schools Model Training Program available. So I
Footnotes
think
were
those-
updated as well.
And the footnotes, so.
Yeah, recommendations to adopt.
Good on that? All right. Policy 4:10, fiscal and business management. Again, adopt, recommendation to adopt. And this is requiring school districts to publish its statement of affairs by December 1st of each year on its website and in a newspaper of general circulation, which I am assuming we are already doing.
Correct.
Correct?
Yes.
All right. Any questions on that one?
In fact, it was in the paper last Thursday.
There you go.
Thank you, Brian.
We talked about that last.
Due December 1st, so it was in the,
There you go.
on Thanksgiving, if you had nothing else to do, you could read that whole thing.
Sweet.
Thank you for that clarification, appreciate that. Any questions on that one? Policy 430, revenue and investments, again, recommendation to adopt, and this is addressing deposit requirements for fiscal institutions subject to the Illinois Community Reinvestment Act, which again, I'm assuming we are already doing.
We do, that's correct.
So updated footnotes as well on that one. Any questions, concerns on that? Okay. Policy 480, accounting and audits. Recommendation to adopt. Any questions or concerns?
Can you speak up?
Sorry. Policy 480, accounting and audits. Recommendation is to adopt. Yeah.
I have one point of clarification for the board here, and I'm going to talk with Jennifer about this, excuse me, coming up. The October 15th date is going to be nearly impossible for us to ever meet.
Okay.
And the reason.
November
That's a
15th?
good point.
Uh,
October 15th.
October 15th is.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, when
Got
we're
it.
supposed to have it done.
Okay.
The problem for us, as I'm assuming for other districts as well, is that we operate on a modified accrual basis. And so our books are actually open, the fiscal year ends June 30th. Our books are open on that fiscal year until the end of August. Our auditors first come in usually the second week of September and do their field work. So for us to meet that October 15th date is going to be certainly problematic, because there's no way the auditors would be done with the field work mid-September. We would have everything done and ready to go, paper printed, or audit printed, financial statements printed, and ready to go for October 15th. So Jennifer and I will talk about that, and then we'll figure out what that looks like going forward.
Was there a date before that was, or did they just decide to add a date and there wasn't a deadline necessarily?
No, so here's what happened. The date was October 15th, and then there was an extension that you could apply for that went to December 15th. There was a change in the legislation. For whatever reason, they wiped out the December 15th extension. I don't know why that happened. I don't know, Jennifer, if you know why.
We don't know why either. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was, it's one of those things where sometimes you don't know, is it intentional or is it kind of an accidental thing that happens sometimes when
Right.
they're making other amendments and changes, and I mean, it's kind of foreshadowing some of the other things and some of the other policies we'll see.
Right.
So Ryan and I chatted a little bit before the meeting started, and I will say, so I found a friend, because financial policies are a little outside my area of expertise. So same thing, Heather Brickman in our office noted the exact same thing, and she said, really, every school district is going to be in this problem without, and quite frankly, their audit firms are gonna be in a real trouble. All of your audit firms are gonna be in real trouble because of with taking away the extension. So maybe that is something, I think, especially the audit firms, might be lobbying as well as school districts to push. Maybe it's something that might get fixed with some kind of like follow-up legislation. And we might see essentially that extension put back in, because it's really the only logical way to do this. So Heather said she's happy to follow up with you to the extent. The challenge here is your board, so the deadline, like I said, has always been October 15th. That's what your policy has always said. The suggested language that press added, that we're recommending, adding in as well, follows the statute. Now, that's just not to say as if there isn't some sort of trailer bill that fixes this extension problem. Now, your policy never talked about the extension anyway, because it's something you did through your intermediate service center, so through the ROEs. Then you always just went through, you had the paperwork for that process, and it wasn't an issue. So we're hoping that we're just gonna kind of see maybe a correction behind the scenes, because quite frankly, otherwise I don't know come 2026 what school districts and the audit firms are going to do. But we'll kind of figure that out, and so whether or not, in some ways, your policy will stand because it's always been that way, and then it's more just a matter of kind of, can we fix it behind the scenes so then there isn't this timeline problem?
So, yeah, so that's the recommendation why
Yes,
we should
is to adopt it, right, because you're really not changing that deadline, we're just actually adding some additional language.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
clarification.
As you're now sweating over there, I know, right?
Yeah, that's it.
It's out of your hands.
Yeah.
Okay. Policy 4:140, waiver of student fees. Recommendation to adopt. Any questions on that one? Good? Policy 5:10, equal opportunity and minority recruitment. Recommendation to adopt.
Let me see if I just wanna check there's nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe it was underneath that district issued equipment. Okay, no, that's all right, I wanted to clarify, it says district issued.
Okay.
Okay.
Good? Policy 590, abused and neglected child reporting. Recommendation to adopt. A lot of head nodding. Good? Number 10, policy 5:100, staff development program. Recommendation to adopt. Again, a lot of these are updates to references and footnotes. Good on that one? Policy 5:190, teacher qualifications. Recommendation to adopt. All right. Slow me down if I'm going too quick. Policy 5:200, terms and conditions of employment and dismissal. This is a policy unique to our district. And it's requiring that an employee be compensated during a break to express breast milk. Recommendation to adopt. I'm assuming that this is already well within our practice. And also, I guess that was my question, which we just went through negotiations. This is all well within our contracts, and no concerns with that. Okay. Any concerns, questions on that? Okay. Policy 5:220, substitute teachers. Recommendation to adopt. In practice, I assume we're doing this already? Very good. Okay. Policy 5:280, duties and qualifications. Recommendation to adopt. Okay. Policy 5:300, schedules and employment year. Recommendation to adopt. Good. All right. Policy 6:20, school year calendar and day. Recommendation to adopt this as well. This has multiple layers to it, but.
Yeah, it does.
Any questions on this one?
is it different from what we're doing in practice?
That's a good question. We are not observing Arbor or Leaf or
Right.
Bird Day or Leaf Day.
Ferguson Day, yeah.
Don't recall.
But we have,
But this is just making it optional.
Yeah.
All these things are optional, which,
okay, so optional
Yeah.
for us to add.
To add,
We don't,
yeah.
and we don't
We don't
have to
have
list
to,
that on
no.
our calendar as these were options we didn't.
yeah, you're just adopting a policy that would make these optional,
Okay.
any of these things.
But then the day after Thanksgiving, Native American Heritage Day, do we have it listed that way? I mean, because we do
No, we
take
always
that
have the Friday off after, yeah,
Okay.
we don't have that list on our
But we
calendar.
could, in theory.
Yeah.
We could say that.
Yep.
Okay, which I like that idea.
So do I.
Okay, great.
And then, sorry, I guess the only question I highlighted on this also was there's additional activities that could be added to be allowed counted toward calculation of clock hours of schoolwork. Do we do that? I know some districts do that, right? You're essentially doing a work internship or something outside the school day and counting that. Do we do anything particular? No? But it's an option for us?
Right.
Okay.
And really what the school code did is just expand the different types of categories of activities that can fall under
Okay.
that clock hour credit.
Okay. Very good. And this is, the next one is one I think we'll have to spend a little bit of time on. But this is policy 6:60 curriculum. And so press is requiring us to answer or address options for school districts to include a unit of instruction on the Irish famine, which maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, and the good news is that it's already a part of our U.S. history, specifically Unit 2, where students learn about the 4 waves of immigration. And specifically, it relates to the potato famine.
Okay.
And then it's also embedded in AP European history.
Okay.
So
We're covering it already.
So we would say answer that, select yes, because we're already providing instruction on the answer required. And then adopt the policy as recommended.
And everything else embedded in there, I'm assuming we're also doing the addition of abduction education, the amended consolidated media literacy and internet safety requirements. We're already doing all of that. Okay. Any questions or comments on that one?
I'm glad that you explained it.
Yeah.
And my memory's terrible, so I don't remember what I learned during that time either, so it's not like I could say, we learned that too.
I'm with
didn't
you.
we?"
Even though it was yesterday, I'm with you.
Oh, right, yesterday, very much so.
Why are you laughing? I don't understand. I didn't say anything funny. Okay. Policy 6:160 English learners, recommendation to adopt. Addition of including guardian, with parent guardian. Questions, concerns? No? And then policy 6:210 instructional materials. Again, this one is recommendation to approve, but the board is required to answer. So press is presenting options for boards that wish only to adopt main or primary instructional materials, with the superintendent approving the selection of all other instructional materials. So I guess the question, right, in practice is, we're asking that the board make approval for all instructional materials. And it was interesting, because this actually came up in our III conference as one of the legal worrisome pieces, is we are not approving every instructional material. That's just not how, the core, yes, right? But if a teacher brings in some resources or things, we're not approving that. So I think this aims to protect boards and school districts from saying that we're not approving everything, right? Is that fair interpretation of?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, I think when some districts move to having board involvement, right, in reviewing and approving certain instructional materials, when that language was then added to the policy that said that you were, and it read as if you were then approving all instructional materials, then it becomes the question of, right, how broadly is that defined? And then, quite frankly, from a practical standpoint, is it really feasible to bring you all instructional materials for your approval in a timely manner versus those that are considered the core, components of your classes across the board? And so, while Press chose then, kind of just through kind of collaboration of picking what was a good term, primary is the one that they landed on. What then I recommend to boards is, if you are selecting this option, is then defining kind of internally, what does primary constitute, right? We don't necessarily need to define it in the board policy itself.
okay.
You can define that internally, and obviously that's also driven by how your curriculum will change over time. So that's the living, breathing side of this. But, you know, our recommendation, unless your intent truly is to bring everything to you to improve, just from a true practical feasible standpoint, it's shifting to this primary option. And then you're right, you're delegating it to the superintendent and, you know, the other administrators who are otherwise reviewing all of the instructional materials that your staff are instructing.
This would essentially this policy would bring us into alignment with our historical practice. So like, you know, every January, February, we bring primary instructional materials to the board, textbooks and other primary materials. So our recommendation is answer this question, yes, add the word primary to it, and then that's gonna bring us into alignment with, honestly, what we've always done. Like, if you think about it in terms of teachers are using a magazine article or a YouTube video or something, we don't want all that coming, it's not physically possible, to be honest, so, so we would say, recommendation, answer yes, adopt the policy as written, or as updated.
And I imagine 100% of the districts in the state of Illinois are not, their boards are not approving everything, right? So,
Correct.
I think that's a fair generalization.
Right.
Okay. That helps for clarification, so thank you. Any other questions, concerns on that?
No.
Policy 6:260, complaints about curriculum, instructional materials, and programs. Recommendation to adopt unchanged, legal references and footnotes changed. Questions, concerns on this? We have this practice already in place,
Yep.
right? Okay. Policy 6:300, graduation requirements. Recommendation to adopt. Again, this is something that I'm assuming that we are already doing in practice.
Yes, through our civics course.
Okay.
Wait, I had a question.
Yeah?
Yeah, and the question about the exam on patriotism, I know that that's something that we have been doing historically. That's been in our policy for quite some time, several years. And so is that its own exam? Is that just like a unit or something within there? And that's the exam, I mean, or how is that, or is it part of another?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the civics course, it is truly integrated into
It is.
the course in its entirety. There are specific units, though, that do focus specifically on like proper use and display of the American flag. For example, Unit 3 in our civics course. But in totality, patriotism is just a part of the civics course.
Okay. I appreciate that. Okay, yeah, that was all I had on that one.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? All right, policy 6:310, credit for alternative courses and programs and course substitutions. Recommendation to adopt. This is a district unique policy, correct? However, it's only substantive legal update as it relates to our tech prep program, right?
Yep.
Is Tech Prep Partnership for Careers Programs the name of some actual entity, and is it like a proprietary program? What exactly is that?
You know, I don't know. Do you know that,
They
Jennifer?
capitalized it all, and so I'm like, is this something that we're supposed to
It must be a formal
be?
program, like I know in my
doing?
dealings with
Which we
Deos or
named.
TCD.
I was gonna say that would be
I've
our,
not
right?
Remove the,
So like, I feel like if that's not what our program's called, like, should we be looking at that? I don't.
It's the technical name under the statute, and then there are, I guess, a description of what may then fall under it. So within the district, you may have a different
Our
name for
own,
like
okay.
a career tech ed program that would fall under it. But the reason why they use that term is because that's how the statute identifies what those types of programs are. And
wish it
I think
wasn't
they actually
capitalized.
updated and changed the name this year.
Confusing.
Right, I hate to say it, but this update is almost like the most technical.
Yeah.
Like, let's update, and then there was the entire shift of the school code of renumbering, which really just made Press's life a nightmare, and then the rest of us that kind of like deal with the actual sections of the school code itself. That's why you see so many updates, and this is kind of in that same vein. Like, they didn't really change the substantive nature of even that tech prep program, They just really renamed it, and then obviously press just has to update the policy to reflect that.
As long as we're doing what we're supposed to be doing,
Right,
what we're supposed to be
right.
doing
Yep.
that with.
Right.
That would make me happy, and not
That's-
something
Yeah,
else
I
that we're
think-
supposed to adopt or take on.
And that's the only legal update to that piece of
Okay,
this.
thank you.
And then policy 6:320, high school credit for proficiency. Recommendation to adopt. No concerns there? Policy 7:10, equal educational opportunities. Recommendation to adopt.
I just have a quick
Yep.
question. I noticed through some of the material, whenever the word parent is utilized, there's usually / guardian.
Yeah.
And then there's the instance here where we don't have that. And then there's other instances. Does that, I mean, I know that it's not being flagged by press currently across, but I'm assuming at one point those were all updated.
Usually, yes, it's part of their kind of continuous improvement process. You saw that earlier in one of the other policies where they were
Yes,
adding and
they
catching
added.
that. And so it's similar to the use of different pronouns or other things like that, where they're just meant to press, and there's actually a disclaimer if you read the very, very beginning of your entire board policy manual that talks about how these terms are meant to be kind of inclusive in that way, so that if we mean parent, we likely mean legal that we also mean legal guardian of the child. For example, if the child doesn't, if it's not their biological or adoptive parent. And so to me, it is meant to be read, unless there is a specific legal reason otherwise, but it is meant to be read as inclusive.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Okay. Next is policy 7:70, attendance and truancy. Recommendation to adopt.
I struggle with some of the word
Yeah.
choices. Applies to individuals who have custody or control of a child. I don't know, like, I know that that's probably how it's been.
Say that again.
Sorry, under 770, the very first sentence
The very first
says,
sentence. Yes.
Control
So-
of a child.
Statutory language.
Okay,
Because
thank
it
you.
also relates, when we talk about the ability to enroll a child
Yeah.
in school,
Yeah.
individuals who don't have legal standing as to the child can also have what the law considers control of the child. For example, if you might be, like I said, not have legal standing, but you might be a relative with whom the child is living with, to enroll the child. So it
Okay.
is simply just the legal term.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just need to work on that, but.
And I guess my only question related to that, it does talk about the district's updated attendance policy must be included in the district student handbook and publicly posted. But the policy would go into effect now, so would that mean that we had to revise our handbook after adoption, or is this something that goes into effect
So-
next week?
So typically what we advise, and I mean, and this happens obviously because you update board policies on a
Right.
rolling basis. Many of them are ones that you have to put in your handbook. So the way that we kind of just from a practical standpoint, is one, that's why most places your handbook links to the current board policy. So this policy or any of the ones that you update, and, I know I'm looking at Leslie and Jen, to, jump in from a practical standpoint, but generally what we advise is that you're gonna update your live links to policies in your existing handbook. I mean, I understand that someone could have printed it out in August and it's not gonna be the most up to date, you don't need to reprint all of them. But I would update your, online handbook and any live links to it, and then typically what we recommend, and you may have to do this then a few times during the year if there's other updates, and this might apply to anything, is in like a school newsletter or something else that goes out, you can even have just like a little announcement that says, please note the student handbook has been updated, including updated board policies, here's a link to it, right? So then you're giving some sort of ongoing notice to families during the school year, whether it's like even in an email that, that goes out from the principal or, in an email from Dr. Waterman out to families on an ongoing basis after the board adopts the policy.
You can do that.
There's too many policies now that have to be included in your handbook.
Yeah,
We
yes.
can't be printing and
The
reprinting a
handbook
million
will be
times.
500 pages long, right? Okay. Any other questions, concerns on that? Policy 7:180, prevention and response to bullying, intimidation, or harassment. Updating some language. Recommendation to adopt.
language.
Good on that one? Policy 7:190, student behavior recommendation to adopt. Questions, concerns? Okay. Policy 7:290, suicide and depression awareness and prevention. Recommendation to adopt. I did have a question on this. In practice, again, I think we're already doing this. I imagine some of the work that we've been doing, especially recently over the last couple of years with the list submission and everything else, will satisfy this already in practice.
It's in our students' required health class, and then also a list submission would satisfy.
Perfect, thank you. Good on that? Policy 7:315, restrictions on publications, high school. Recommendation to adopt. Again, I assume we're doing this already in our coursework. Internet safety. Yeah. Policy 7:340, student records. Recommendation to adopt. It does make sense. Okay. Policy 8:30, visitor and conduct on school property, recommendation to adopt. Updated footnotes and law. And so we are now in section 2, press plus draft rewritten policies. Policy 7:150, agency and law enforcement requests. This is kind of what we were talking about earlier before. This one is requesting recommendation to adopt. Any questions on this one?
No, this makes sense.
And I guess my only question on this one was, it does require superintendent to develop procedures to manage requests by government agencies or law enforcement regarding students in school. I assume we already have this in
We have
practice.
this, yeah.
Okay.
Because we get those requests from time to time.
Yeah.
Not a ton, but we get them.
We get 'em.
Okay, that's a good question, yeah.
Okay. All right, anything else on that one?
And it does point out that the law enforcement agent doesn't include our school resource officer. This is separate of that.
Carrie, what did you say?
That our school resource officer is separate of this definition of a law enforcement agent.
Our last section and our last policy, section 3, press plus review and monitoring policies. This is specific to policy 6:280, grading and promotion, recommendation to adopt. And this is on a 5-year review.
Hasn't been updated in 5
No
years. so,
changes.
yeah.
We're good? All right. That is all we have for press policies. I know there's some questions that came up. We'll come back and address this at our next board meeting.
So this will come back in 2 weeks for a second reading, consideration of approval. And so the notes I made here on some of the questions that come up, I'll get those to you guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jennifer, appreciate it.
Appreciate your insight. Okay, our next item this evening is the stipend committee recommendations. I'll turn it over to Ed Piotrowski.
Thank you very much. Tonight, we are making the recommendation to recommend the formal adoption of Women in Sports Empowerment Club, commonly referred to as WISE, as an official student club. This club has been meeting in pilot status since the 2024-2025 school year, and at this time, we are recommending, as I said, the creation of a club stipend and recognition as an official student club. This recommendation reflects the district's commitment to fostering student engagement, expanding inclusive opportunities, and ensuring equitable access to co-curricular experiences for all students. We are recommending approval of the stipend for WISE Club, formally transitioning it from the pilot status to a fully recognized student organization with a 2.64% base level stipend. This club is centered on elevating the visibility, history, and ongoing efforts of women in sports. Its mission focuses on promoting gender equality, particularly within athletics, and increasing support and fan engagement for girls' sports teams at Lyons Township High School. Since its launch as a pilot program, it has demonstrated strong and consistent student interest. This group meets approximately every other week. Attendance averages about 20 students per meeting. We currently have a physical education teacher that is serving as the volunteer sponsor throughout the pilot phase. This club advances its mission in a variety of meaningful ways. They design marketing materials for girls' athletic events at LT. They host guest speakers such as female athletes, coaches, and LT alumni, and coordinate service opportunities, including creating encouragement cards for youth recreational leagues like AYSO to help keep girls engaged in sports. Additionally, members are actively fundraising to attend women's professional sporting events in Chicago, broadening their exposure to high-level female athletics. Based on the club's clearly defined mission, demonstrated student engagement, and successful operation during its pilot period, the stipend committee recommends the creation of one activity stipend for the WISE Club, as mentioned, being a 2.64% base activity stipend, totaling approximately $1,552 for the school year. This evening, we formally request that the Board of Education approve the recommendation. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Going to ask you how many students.
I was gonna
and got
say
to
that.
that too, so that's very helpful. And this is awesome, super, super exciting. And I was going to ask how they did it, and you've done a great job of explaining the ways that they are hyping our women's sports. And I guess I was going to ask if you had any insight as to like grade level interest. Like, has that been, where are we seeing most of our students pulling from a certain?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I could certainly gather that
Curious
information.
where
Sure.
that starts, and
Yeah.
kind of where
We could
that-
certainly find out.
Yeah, where we generate more of that excitement and just more and more of this,
Yeah, we'll find out from student activities.
It's great.
You also answered my question, but I did want to highlight what I loved. I love everything about it, but I especially love how they're not only doing the work in the walls of LT, but they're actually pushing out into the community and doing a lot of work outside the walls of LT, which I just thought was phenomenal.
Absolutely.
I think it's a great.
Absolutely, and it echoes what we heard earlier today when we were
100%.
talking about the Goal 4 meeting, or Goal 4 presentation.
Yeah. Keep the excitement going. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions, concerns?
And again, that would come back in 2 weeks, December 15th, for
Yep.
consideration of approval.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
And thank you to your stipends committee for all their work on this as well.
Absolutely, thank you.
Our next item is finance. Is to review the bond and interest supplemental levy. Brian, I know that's a tongue twister for me. Brian Stashak.
Thank you, President Elbors. You may recall from our prior conversations about the 2025 tax levy, that there is the general levy and then there is the supplemental levy. The general levy covers all of our operating funds. The supplemental levy covers our bond and interest fund. And the reason that this is a separate resolution is because in 2009, the law in the state of Illinois changed, allowing school districts to increase their bond and interest levy. Prior to that, you could never do that. However, in order to do so, you now need a supplemental levy to do that. And so this particular resolution is, you've already seen the numbers on the documents that you've seen in, in the prior, for the prior presentations of the levy, for the supplemental levy. This particular resolution allows us to actually levy $3,021,299.03 into the bond and interest fund as part of our total 2025 tax levy. This was assumed when we sold the bonds in 23 and 24. We assumed that we would be increasing by these percentages as we go. And so again, this technically is not due until I believe it's sometime in March, but I have the board along with the general levy approve both of these. I file both of them with the county, and then we are done at that point. So again, this is just for review tonight. We will ask the board, this will be a separate agenda item during the regular meeting in December. We'll ask the board to approve it at that time as well as part of the, it'll be a separate item, but will be included in the total levy. And those numbers that I have on the levy documents that you've seen in the past already include this number as well. Be happy to answer any questions.
Brian, is this something that comes back in 2 weeks?
Yes, it'll come back as a separate item, separate from the general levy approval. We'll have the board, ask the board to approve this supplemental levy at that time as well.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Welcome.
Okay, So our final item this evening is discussion regarding the real estate broker consultant services. Again, our intention this evening is to interview real estate broker consultants who have submitted their offer. We've received 6 proposals, all of whom are interested in doing the work. However, we only have 5 that will be able to be here this evening. So Brian, I'll turn it over to you to kind of lead us down that next path.
Yeah, so just real quickly, I'll just kind of give a recap of the timeline, but the board back on November 3rd had a discussion about potentially bringing on board a real estate broker consultant to assist with a potential sale of the Willow Springs property. On November 5th, the district released or distributed a request for proposals officially with a deadline of November 21st to submit a proposal. As Tim mentioned, we received 6 proposals back by the deadline of November 21st. And then the recommendation was to invite each of the firms that submitted a proposal to tonight's meeting to actually have to spend a few minutes presenting their proposal, and then also giving the board time for Q&A. Also, just as a reminder, we put in the RFP that if any firm submitted a proposal, that their proposal would be posted publicly on our website. So we have complied with that. Last Tuesday, all the proposals that were submitted were posted publicly on the Willow Springs property website. So I think the structure of tonight is to allow each firm a total of 15 minutes. So that includes, I would say, roughly 5 to 7 minutes for an overview of your proposal or presentation on your proposal, and then about 7 to 8 minutes for a Q&A with the board. So before we dive into that, though, I want to give our leadership team a chance to leave.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be a longer night, and so they've obviously been here for a while. So I thought of that as I was talking. Sorry, guys. So we're going to take a pause here for a second, and then we'll get into the leadership team. Or we'll get into the real estate.
Good night,
proposals.
everybody.
So
You guys
leadership
have a
team, you guys
long
good?
night.
Good night. I'm
Thanks.
Thank you, though.
All right, so again, the goal tonight, and this is obviously for the board, but also for our guests, is I'll invite the company up And then just, again, plan to spend 5 to 7 minutes giving an overview of your proposal for the board. The board there's a couple questions that the board president will ask during the Q&A session, but then any board member has the ability to ask questions as well. So any questions from the board before we get started? And I will display each firm's proposal on the monitors as they're presenting. So any questions before we start? Okay, we'll start with the first firm, which is Baum Realty Group. And their representative is Mike Mexto. Come up to the podium. Thank you.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. First of all, I apologize for my appearance tonight. I understand. I can clearly see everyone's dressed up for this gathering. I was actually looking at land today in Delavan, Wisconsin, so I dressed for warmth and came down this way to be here with you all today. I wanted to, first of all, thank President Albers for your information. I contacted you. You got back to me right away. I appreciate that, and grateful for the opportunity to present the board here tonight. Also, Dr. Waterman, thank you for taking the time to speak with me over the phone a couple of times. As a Western Springs resident, excuse me, I've lived in town for over 35 years. So, and as a commercial real estate broker for over 36 years, I was aware of this property down on Willow Springs Road. So thank you for sharing a little bit about what the past and what will be in the future. Again, I've been in real estate for approximately 36 years, concentrating primarily on land, buying and selling for my clients. Started in the Chicago metropolitan marketplace, and because of the client requests, now buy land in approximately 14 states in the United States. Those land parcels range between 5 to 45 acres apiece. And the property that you have in Willow Springs, it's a significant amount of land. 75 acres is a significant parcel of property, especially the distance from Chicago, 15 miles to the city, 6 miles to Midway Airport, 20 miles to Midway, 6 miles to Midway, 20 miles to O'Hare, depending upon traffic on 294. But it's a significant location, and it's going to gain the attention of specific groups that have the ability to utilize this property for whatever their end game is going to be. I also want to introduce my colleague, Chuck Whitlock. He's here with me tonight. Chuck and I are on the proposal. However, we've got the entire Baum crew backing us up. We've got a terrific marketing staff. We spend a lot of money on our marketing data, up to $250,000 a year, just to keep current with the data required for today's environment. And Chuck, if you want to talk a little bit more, please do.
Thanks again for having us. Really appreciate the opportunity. Nice to meet all of you. I think one thing I would like to touch on is we weren't around, obviously, for what transpired in 2023, but Baum in 2025, I'd like to say, is a clean slate. We really view this as a glass house. Public visibility is of utmost importance to us. Following the Illinois School Code is very important, and so we plan to honor that, understanding the various stakeholders involved. And I think we can be an asset to all of you, a strategic consultant, a strategic shield to the board, liaison with the community in vetting these prospective buyers. So thank you again. We can open up to questions.
Yep. So I have 3 questions that I'll ask. The first one being, how will you market the property locally and or nationally?
Well, we've got our contacts locally. We've worked with numerous developers in the past and currently. Again, the significance of this particular parcel of property, 75 acres, in its location. I would assume that there are probably, and I've already heard, there are a number of developers that have already heard about this opportunity. They will be forthcoming. We also have a network throughout the United States that we will be contacting I do want to be specific, because with 75 acres, and based upon what your appraisal says from the professional that compiled the information, this is a lot of money. $6 to $8 million is a lot of money. And the zoning that they're proposing is light industrial. Now, will that become light industrial? I don't know. That is something that we will find out through the program and through the process. But $6 to $8 million recommended by your professional appraiser, that's a lot of money. And there's only so many people that can afford to play that game. Because once you buy the land, now you got to put a building on it, or a series of buildings on it. So while there's a national presence of larger developers, most developers have an office in Chicago, or they have a partner in Chicago. And that partner will be contacted.
Okay. Do you see any potential conflict of interest marketing our property?
My fiduciary responsibility is to the board. And that's the law. And that is the path I will follow. If there is, let me rephrase. If your goal is to send out RFPs, then that's the right program to take. Send out the RFP, just like we did for us, and let them come in and tell you what they want to do. I would also recommend, and again, I'm just spitballing here, but a lot of these developers that have the ability to pay this money and play this game, I would recommend that the board, if they'll come in with a broker, let that developer pay the broker's fee. That's another way to protect yourself and to protect us from being your consultant, because my fiduciary relationship is to you and you alone.
Thank you. And the last question is, are there any expenses that we could incur outside the proposal, and again, not including what we would normally expect with the closing?
I don't think so. I think we were pretty specific. We thought it best to break it down into being one lump sum. Because when you see one lump sum, well, what does that mean? I think the way we broke it down into 4 compartments is the better way to go. But time is money. Again, Chuck and I will be your spearhead, but we've got the whole company behind us. We've got the marketing department. Their time is important and valuable. So to answer your question, I would say no.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions? I do have one, sorry. The 4 parts that you did break up, if we decided within the proposal that we only wanted to do the first 2, are we obligated to all 4?
No.
Okay.
No, it's your choice.
That's all I needed.
I just, based on the valuation that is now, how old? A little over a
We have
year?
22.
It's been
3 years?
3 years?
Yeah.
20, well, was it 22 or 23? I think it was
22.
So, somewhat outdated, potentially.
Yeah.
Where your professional experience, we're too high, too low, are we in the ballpark? Do you have a feeling there? As it's zoned now, I guess, would be the other caveat to that.
Well, as it's zoned now is vacant land. The professional appraiser, in his highest and best use opinion, was light industrial.
Right.
Yeah, the value is nowhere near what the current zoning. The highest and best use is the industrial, and that's where you get the X multiple for the valuation.
Right.
Has the market changed since 2022? For the industrial product, I think it's only improved. I think there's still strong demand, there's low vacancy, so I think, the number has gone up since that day.
Yeah. Actually, there's going to be another parcel of property coming out in Chicago here pretty soon. It's going to be the southeast corner of 15th and Western in Chicago. That's going to be about 75 acres. The marketing materials are being created for that parcel. We are not involved in that. However, I've heard that they're asking about $30 a square foot. Your appraisal at the $68 million number is approximately $20 a square foot and change. So, but I'm not sure that's a comparison of an apple and an apple. Because you've got that property right down Chicago, it's already, you know, you already got the rails, so on and so forth, and the infrastructure.
I do have a question. You said the term light industrial. What qualifies something as light industrial? What would be an example of something like that?
Well, it's not manufacturing, and it would be more, as we discussed today, the AI.
Warehouse data centers potentially.
Warehouse data centers, yeah, that's an example.
Yeah, nothing with, you know, big smokestacks and, you know, producing and iron being melted, something like that.
Great.
Yeah, and I also believe you're going to have lighter truck traffic. It won't be as severe. Of course, you've got the UPS facility, which is right across the street. That's 243 acres, and which was built in 1991. That actually that's the largest UPS facility in the world, ground facility in the world. There's also and also the ingress egress from your particular property. The ingress egress is terrific. You can go up Willow Springs Road. You can cut over on 75th Street. You can get on 294 right away, or you can go south, which I wouldn't do. You can go south to Archer Avenue, take a left, and go to 294 that way. So because of the UPS facility, your ingress egress, excuse me, is already pretty good.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thanks again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'll wear a sport coat and tie next time.
No need.
Okay, our next firm is Darwin PW Realty, and that is Erica Villegas and Laura Perma.
Good evening, everyone.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Thank you all for having us here. I actually want to come back to high school after hearing the strategic plan number 4 today and having a day as a freshman. But it was very enlightening as how high schools have changed. Again, thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Waterman, members of the board, and community here today. Today, we have a rare opportunity before you, the opportunity to transform the future of Lyons Township High School District 204 through the sale of one of its most valuable assets. There is no question that the stakes are high. The question is, who is best equipped to guide the district through a transaction of this magnitude? The answer is clear. Laura and I are here today. We are the right team for this job, and let me tell you why. First, our partnership brings together an unparalleled combination of commercial, industrial, residential, and international real estate expertise. A fusion no other firm can match here today. Unlike single discipline brokers who can only appeal to one segment of the market, our dual specialty team is uniquely prepared to unlock demand from both commercial, industrial developers, and residential land buyers. That means more competition, more qualified bidders, and ultimately a higher sale price for the district. As highly involved real estate professionals, we also have served on different boards throughout our careers. We understand your fiduciary responsibilities to your board, to your school, and we take our fiduciary responsibilities to our clients very seriously. Second, our approach is not theoretical. It is built on proven outcomes. Our firms have consistently delivered record-setting results by leveraging deep market understanding, strategic analysis, and a buyer network that reaches across Chicagoland and beyond. The results of our firms are important because they help open doors for us, but our own personal results speaks for themselves. We don't just list the property. We position it, we elevate it, we create a competitive plan, which is exactly what a once-in-a-generation property like this demands. We think outside the box, and several of our ideas we have to market this piece of land will show you just that. In the first 30 days, we will use a timeline provided by the district, but enhance it with the work we have in mind. In the first 7 to 10 business days, we will provide a full evaluation, taking the appraisal that was done, but knowing that the market has changed over the last couple of years. and a full marketing plan to be approved by you all, to then share with local, state, national, and international qualified buyers. We will provide a timeline to help everyone understand the goals, reduce confusion, and help us align expectations and keep us all accountable. Our goal is to simplify the process and work closely to achieve the goal of the proposal. I can assure you that you are in good hands because Laura and I both are all hands on deck team. We will be managing the day-to-day operation even though we have teams. We are not using virtual assistants. It's Laura and I, you get us both, and we will work diligently together. When we think of the many possibilities and the positive impact this land sale can have, we think of several ideas. We know that it's light for light manufacturing today, but we have other ideas that we would love to share with you in the future if we get chosen. One of the ideas that comes to mind is a 55-plus community focused on quality living, filled with green spaces, thriving businesses, and more. Third, the team is not just capable, we are committed. Our fee structure reflects a genuine investment in the success of this sale. In fact, if we secure the buyer directly, we will donate the final payment back to the district. That is not a marketing slogan. This is real money redirected into capital improvements and financial literacy programming for students. A reinvestment in the very community this sale is intended to benefit. No other proposal offers this level of alignment with the district's long-term mission. Fourth, our leadership brings experience, credibility, a vision required for a project of this scale. Laura Perlman combines extensive industrial and commercial transaction experience with a deep understanding of development and working alongside with local government and community stakeholders to maximize the potential of properties and land. Myself, I'm a nationally recognized leader in the bilingual market with over $300 million in sales, land development and constructions of homes in Mexico, and immediate past president of the Chicago Association of Realtors. I'm also a national board member of NAREP, the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, with over 50,000 members across the U.S. And I love building generational wealth. That is a passion of mine. Together, we represent a powerhouse partnership grounded in results, relationships, and regional expertise. Finally, let's be clear. This is not a merely land sale for us. This is a movement that will shape the district for decades. Choosing the right partner is not about selecting a brokerage, it's about selecting a steward. You deserve a team that understands the financial responsibility, regulatory requirements, community expectations, and potential legacy tied to this transaction. We are ready to begin. We have spent hours after hours listening to transcripts, watching recorded videos, and understand the Illinois school code. We are prepared to work tirelessly to ensure the district realizes the highest potential return, minimize risk, and captures the full value of a once-a-generation opportunity. Thank you for your time, your consideration, and your commitment to the future of Lyons Township High School District 204. Thank you.
Thank you. So the same three questions. What will you do to market this property locally or nationally?
Absolutely. So our marketing capabilities we have the reach of all of the local developers, along with international reach. Darwin is a member of a local or an independent network that is worldwide through CoreFac. And so we have a worldwide reach to be able to really market the property directly to our local players here, which, through the industrial markets, which we know potentially may be the highest and best use, but we do have local contacts and international contacts.
And then do you see any potential conflict of interest marketing our property?
Absolutely none.
And then are there any expenses that we could incur outside the proposal, not including what we would expect outside of the closing?
None outside. The only thing is possibly updating, maybe getting updated surveys, but nothing outside of the norm of
Closing costs. They're a part of a transaction.
Okay. Any other questions?
Can you give me a better understanding of your payment schedule and fee breakdown, and which includes that possible repayment, or however you phrased it, back into the school. Could you just go into detail about that, please?
Sure. So as part of thinking outside the box and thinking of new ideas as well, we have several payments. The last payment, if we can secure the buyer, which we think we can because of the connections that we have and the players that we know in the Chicagoland area and beyond, then that fee would be donated back to the school for, I think that's something that we can discuss. We would love to see that money to go back for financial literacy or for scholarships or for, other ideas that maybe the school is in need that we may not know. But I think that that is a clear way of giving back and making a greater impact, not only in the sale, but also with the school district.
I'm going to piggyback on that and ask, is this the first time, or what is the % success rate of purchasers going through your team? Meaning, what's the % likelihood that we would actually be able to benefit from that donation? Have you offered that in the past, and how frequently, how successful has it been?
This is definitely an unusual property, right? So we've teamed up, Erica and I have teamed up on other sites, other properties before. No, we have not sold 71 plus acres to anybody before. However, we're pretty confident that this is a site that is strategically placed in terms of location, in terms of the eyes that have been on this site, and that we feel that we'll be able to guide to the site. And we are pretty confident that we'll be able to bring the buyer direct.
I guess my only other question is, if for some reason we go through this and decide that we don't want to sell the property, is the school district still on the hook for the full $3 million?
No, that would only be, that's absolutely not. If the property is not sold, that would not, that final payment would never need to be paid. Absolutely not. Yes, and we would spell that out in any final, but absolutely, that payment would only be contingent upon a sale or in line with the sale.
Thank you. Sorry, not 3 million, 2.7.
Yes, 2.73.
Thank you.
Yeah, we would make that very clear for sure.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, the next firm is Mohall Commercial and Urban Development, and the representative here tonight is Moses Hall. Welcome.
Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you. As mentioned, my name is Moses Hall. I am the owner, founder, managing broker of Mohall Commercial and Urban Development. I've been in the industry now going on 12 years. We're a full-service commercial brokerage here in the Chicagoland area, specializing in government contracting and working with different municipalities. My firm was built with a simple mission, and that's to help public institutions, schools, and municipalities make clear, data-driven real estate decisions that project their interests and strengths, their long-term financial position. Over the years, that's taken us into partnerships with organizations like the South Suburban Land Bank. If you know anything about land banks, one of the biggest things of inventory that they have is land, and that's the biggest struggle that they have. It's getting the land sold. And so they brought me on as a consultant to give them strategy and how to develop a lot of the land inventory that they have. And so I've also worked with municipalities like the Village of Hazelcrest. They've had an initiative for an arts district, and so they brought me in to bring development to blighted areas. I'm happy to say we've been successful and to bring investment to a corridor that was completely vacant, blighted, and now we have thriving businesses in that corridor. So those are some of the examples of projects that I've had to opportunity to work with municipalities. And so I'm not just focused on just getting deals done, I'm also focused on community impact. So those are just some of the examples of some of the work that I've done previously. Also, Mohall brings a strong track record of municipal and public sector brokerage execution, selling and repositioning public assets. It requires a different approach. And so In full transparency, all the presenters tonight, some I know personally, some I've done deals with, everyone is kind of qualified to do this project. What makes me stand out is that even though I'm a boutique brokerage, I have a national and global reach. And because I'm a boutique brokerage, I don't have the overhead costs. And so as you see, my fee is pretty competitive compared to my competitors that submitted. But like I said, that's what really makes me stand out. Like I said, I can go through my resume and how much I've sold. But like I said, everyone tonight is pretty credible industry players that have sold tons of deals, and some of them I've done deals with directly. So I don't want to, belabor the hour with that. But essentially, I built out a step-by-step of what my services include. Like I said, I have access to all the data that the national brokerages have. I have the CoStar, the LoopNets, the Crexes, the MLS, all those and more data-backed platforms that I have access to. Plus, I know I'm probably jumping the question a little bit, but Illinois Realtors send me every year to France, to MIPIM. It's the world's largest commercial real estate conference. And so when you ask about how do you market the property, I'm in front of the developers all over the world. I get to set up meetings individually with developers to market this property in front of them. You know how hard it is to schedule 20 different meetings in different places with developers? I can get to people in one room at one time. So that's kind of what makes me stand out. Like you said, I know we're kind of running behind, but essentially the credentials in the room, everyone's pretty much qualified. What it boils down to is pricing and what the cost is going to be for the services. And so I wanted to stand out more so on a pricing competitive standpoint.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So again, as you kind of mentioned, how you market the property locally or nationally, you spoke to that a little bit already.
Yeah. So one of the things, I'm heavily involved in the commercial real estate industry, being a part of organizations like Urban Land Institute, CCIM, which is the Certified Commercial Investment Member, which I do have that designation, and other organizations like ICSC, that's for shopping centers and retail. So I have a bandwidth of national networks. Also, I go to several conferences, not just here locally, but also internationally. And so I can get in front of the national developers and pitch this site to them and tell them why they should invest in the state of Illinois, primarily the Lyons Township district.
Thank you. Do you see any potential conflict of interest marketing our property?
No, I do not.
And then are there any expenses that we could incur outside of the proposal, not including anything that we would expect with a closing?
As long as the scope of work doesn't greatly change. Now, obviously, if there's a change or more responsibility or more asks for that, obviously that pricing would change. But as it stands right now, you guys are getting bare minimum costs compared to my competitors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any follow-up questions?
Oh, did you have one, Sean?
No.
Okay, no, I'm good too.
Good. All right,
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, our next firm is CBRE Land Services Group, and the representative here tonight is Matt Ishikawa.
Thank you. I also have Tony Ganji with me as well, who I'm dismayed to tell you guys graduated from Lyons in 1980 and is not in the Hall of Fame.
Not yet.
I look pretty hard too. I want to see you at some point in time in a wrestling singlet and when we're gonna do it. I don't know how long the building's open for. I apologize a little bit. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I apologize for coughing. Or my 16-year-old daughter told me as I was walking out of the house how annoying it is that I clear my throat all the time. So I apologize for that. But thank you very much for having us. We appreciate it. We are very happy to have a discussion with you guys about this property. We want this to be conversational, so if you have any questions along the way, we will touch on some things that exist in our RFP. We invite you to really read that RFP front to back if you can. It has a lot of information on it, a lot of who we are, but also how would we approach selling this property. And I guess the best place to start is just to take a step back. CBRE, in general, we're the largest commercial real estate company in the world. We're #1 globally in a lot of different areas, right? We're 123 on the Forbes 500 list.
But bigger is not always better, right? We are a large company. Bigger is better in a couple different things. We have great global outreach in who we market properties to, and the amount of brokers that we have that have eyes on the type of properties that this is, a premier property. We should have national developers, international developers looking at this, and that is not some pie in the sky thing that we're going to say right now. That is something that CBRE can bring to the table. We also have best-in-class marketing and the newest cutting-edge technology when it comes to marketing these properties, and we'll touch on that just a little bit today. I want to touch on a number of things, so hopefully I'll move quickly here. But as I said, bigger is not always better. At CBRE, we all focus on separate disciplines. And for better or for worse, Tony and I have devoted our careers to the sale of vacant land in the Chicagoland area for development. And I say for better or for worse because it's not the easiest segment to focus on. As you guys know already by being attached to this property, land sales has a lot of nuances to it, whether you're talking, and variables, whether you're talking about environmental, survey, off-site development costs, on-site development costs, soil conditions, political entities, and what they'll allow you to do with the property or what they won't. It's really the bane of our existence. It's what we live and breathe all day. I've been doing this for a little over 20 years. Tony's been doing it for over 35 years. And we are 2 of a 9-person team that, again, we focus our careers on the sale of vacant land to developers. We have a partner that does it in the city as well, but mostly in the Chicagoland suburbs. I live in Naperville, Tony lives in St. Charles, and I said he is very familiar with this area, as am I. So we don't lease any buildings. We don't sell houses. We only do land. It's not just part of our business, but it is our sole business. And so one of the things that we have on here is our, on page 8, our land competencies, and it touches a little bit about the types of land that we've worked with through our careers. And so I invite you to take a look at that. I'm not going to go through it right now, but we also have 100 other land entitlement and land brokerage specialists across the country that we get on the phone with once a week, and we talk about the trends that are going on right now across the country and developers coming in and out of the marketplace constantly. So it is something that we live and breathe every single day in what we do, and as I said, we have a 9-person team, 3 marketing specialists and 1 analyst as well. That again, all we do is focus on the sale of land. I do want to touch just a little bit, because I do think it's pertinent for our discussion, hopefully later, on a few case studies that we've done in the marketplace. We're not saying this to kind of pat ourselves in the back, but what we're doing is we want to frame it in how we're going to approach this particular site, right? So we are lucky enough to work on the Arlington racetrack that we eventually sold to the Chicago Bears. We were able to get 30 different offers on that property, and what that did was create leverage from all different kinds of development disciplines, industrial, large-scale residential, multifamily, retail, to create a market. And that's what we hope to do here, right, is to create a very competitive marketplace, as well we should, because it is a premier piece of property. We are also able to work on a couple larger residential deals that you can kind of see in the case studies, where again we created multiple offers to create leverage so that our clients, our landowner clients, could achieve the highest and best price. And so you'll see a number of those examples throughout here. We have the most recent sales that we did in Downers Grove with Disney, as well as the Benson property in Woodridge that's very similar to this piece of property. We have them listed as references as well. So those are real-time people that we've worked with in the past couple of years that can speak to our process and how we go about our business. Tony wants to talk a little bit about this particular property and kind of the strengths and weaknesses that we see on this property and kind of how we envision this sale process going.
Okay. Well, I talked to Willow Springs regarding the approval process, and it appears that it's going to be primarily a residential site. One of the things we want to do is we want to work with the municipality. We know it's going to get developed, so we want to make sure it's as good a quality development as possible, and yet work with them to get the project done. We don't want to fight at all. This is a very desirable property. We've sold a number of high profile sites this is within, this is a high-profile site too, so we're very familiar with how to do it, and we're gonna get multiple offers on the property. There's absolutely no doubt. And, this few of the sites that Matt looked at, we received from 10 to 30 offers, and, it's very possible we're gonna get over 10 offers on this site. This is exactly what we do, which is sell large parcels of land to developers, primarily residential developers. Again, it's a top-notch site, it's large, and there aren't very many properties this size. The location is the right location, it's in the right school district, demographics are good. Very few sites have no negatives. One of the, I don't want to say negative, but one of the challenges that we have to overcome is to work with Willow Springs to ensure that we're going to have the right developer who has the same vision as us and Willow Springs.
And that's really a large part of our process as well. As Tony touched on, we don't want to swim upstream against the municipality. There have been some instances where we've sold properties and our clients have said, you know what, we want to subvert that process completely and sell it quick, i.e. the Chicago Bears, right? They bought that property without full entitlements on it. I would not advise anyone to do that necessarily moving forward, because you're seeing the ramifications of that, of them not being able to reach their agreement with the municipality, and therefore there's a leverage push and pull there, which is why developers are loath to close on properties without full entitlements. And so if you want to achieve the highest and best price for the property, you're going to have to go along for the ride. And I say a ride because it is a ride, a political process of going through them checking off numerous amount of variables when it comes to land parcels, whether it's physical in nature at the very beginning of due diligence or through that government approval process. And that looks like a bunch of different things. It could be, hey, we don't like the way, the color of the buildings. We don't like the roof pitches, right? So we're going to extend it another month. And so there are things that we're very experienced in on kind of how to do that and how to handle these things up front so that it's as painless as possible. There is still going to be some pain and some twists and turns along the way, I guarantee you that, because it is not an easy process. But we are very well versed, and we think we've seen it all most of the time. But sometimes we get calls where we're like, wow, I've never seen that before. So again, what we try to do, and I want to touch on our process a little bit and how we approach something.
One thing I want to mention is we are representing the district. So, we will recommend what we think is the best thing to do, but the board is the one who makes the ultimate decision. But we are definitely representing them, you, as opposed to a buyer. And that's typically how we work anyway.
Right. And so our sales process is on page 19 if you get to take a look at it at some point. But really, that's a lot of upfront work, technical review of the property. Now, I know you're going to ask about any costs incurred through this process. Now, part of the costs incurred that we would suggest is to get as much due diligence as we possibly can from some sort of engineering company. We work with a lot of national engineering companies. We can go through that process, but at the very least, we'd want to know some more about the physical nature of the property, whether it's soils tests, a phase 1 environmental, something to arm us with as much information as possible when we go out to that marketplace. Because if we don't have that information, it's going to come up on day 59 of a 60-day due diligence period.
They're going to put it under contract, and then they're going to say, oh, by the way, your soils in this area are not good. We can say, here's the soils. You bought it subject to this, and we're showing you that, and it's fine.
So it's really education is the first piece of the process, and then it's putting together great marketing materials, right? Something that are easy for developers to sit down in one process and go through everything in that book that tells them where the utility connections are, what the tap-on fees may be for a certain type of development, what the guideline is, the community restrictions on what certain zoning codes mean. We have all that linked in there so that a developer can really do a one-stop shop and sit there. And our goal at the very beginning of this process is to facilitate as many and as much interest as possible and get as many offers as possible to create that competitive environment. And so we really touch upon that. And really, throughout that process, it is, if you sell it subject to approvals, it is a 12-month process after you put it under contract. and it'll take some time to put it under contract. Now, we can talk at a later date about the nuances of how we market the property and whether or not we set a bid date and, you know, the pluses and minuses that we've seen there. But those get into a little bit of granular details, but we'd be glad to talk about that at a later time as well. But, you know, again, we thank you for the opportunity. This is a fantastic piece of property. It may go a bunch of different ways, right? And that's why, in our estimation, what you're doing right now, this process is fantastic. Because what you're really looking for is someone to guide you through that process, right? It's not about a transaction. It's about, okay, how are we going to set ourselves up for success? What are the different avenues? What are your experiences trying to sell something quick to this developer? We most likely know the developer that's going to end up owning this property. We have sold an awful lot of properties to an awful lot of developers, whether it's industrial, residential, right, and reputations, and whether or not that developer is known for retrading a certain time down the road or not. You know, those types of things are hugely critical when you're selecting someone on such a high-profile piece, and you don't want to have too many missteps, because there are a lot of missteps that can happen in a land sale.
Probably should get into the Q&A session.
Yeah, so, and you've already answered this. Anything else that you wanted to add about how you would market the property locally or nationally? I know you spoke on that a little bit.
I mean, we would do obviously the blocking and tackling, right? We'd have it on CoStar, LoopNet. We'd talk about what's appropriate for this site.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate to put it on the MLS? Probably not. At the end of the day, you're not going to find a lot of qualified buyers through the MLS. CoStar, LoopNet, whether it's Crexy or not, we have all those avenues open. But really what's going to sell the property at the end of the day or create the most fervor is by in-person meetings and calling buyers and marketing the property widely. We want to cast a wide net as possible. We have a database of over 10,000 developers that we've sold land to for the past 35 years that we would go to right away, and after we have a comprehensive marketing package, use that to communicate and get as much interest as possible.
And do you have any conflict? Do you see any potential conflicts of interest marketing our property?
No, this would be the best piece of development land, we believe, in the Chicagoland market. We have an awful lot of land for sale at this point in time, but all that does is give us experience, and we understand which buyers are in the marketplace right now. We work for sellers, representing their interests, and so, you know, while we have good relationships with developers across the board, it's our job to have that. We represent sellers, and we don't see any conflict of interest.
And when we pick up the phone to a national developer, they're going to call us back, which is important.
And then you already answered this one too, but anything else you wanted to add? Are there any expenses that we could incur outside the proposal, not including what we would normally expect with the closing?
Yeah, that's it.
Well, Matt talked about the due diligence.
Right.
And we can talk about that. If you don't want to spend that money, you don't necessarily have to, but we're recommending if you want to do the job right, you really should, you know, spend the extra dollars to hire a land planner and maybe have that land planner work with Willow Springs to figure out, you know, a general plan that we can get out to these people.
Well, we can slim down that package as much as you want according to your budget. But at the very least, you need a survey update, you need to rerun title, make sure that's clean.
Yeah.
And then probably a phase 1 environmental study to see how that is. That's kind of the bare bones that you'd
And
want
you
to
may
go
already
into.
have that information too, so.
Right. Probably from past experiences, but always updating those is, first of all, it's cheaper if you have it in the first place, and then it's always recommended by us coming into it. But we have a lot of clients of ours that say, we hear you, no, go, and that's okay too. And we've sold a lot of properties just with a plat page, where we don't even have a survey necessarily. But what it does is it does open you up later down the road to, oh, I didn't know that there's a gas pipeline cutting through there. You know, I can't do this plan now, and now my offer's moot, right? Hopefully we flesh that out through this process. You'll see part of the process is buyer interviews and talking to them about their plans, who they are, where their financing is coming from, what their vision is for the property, and going through that so we can kind of handicap which buyer we think will actually be the best person to partner with. Because really, you are choosing a partner if you sell it subject to entitlements. You have to trust and have a lot of optimism that this group is actually going to be able to get it done through an arduous process, political process.
Tim, can I ask you a question? So the fees that you have in here are only to the buyer? right?
Correct.
Right now, you don't have any fees listed to us, but you're recommending that we do, for layman's term, it sounds like getting a home inspection before we list the house. So we know
Yeah.
what's wrong with the house, we can fix the vents, we can do whatever, or at least we know about it.
You just know about it.
So it'll speed up the process later on, that they won't hit us with, hey, we found this.
Price reduction.
Any idea on cost roughly for 70-acre parcel of that?
You know,
Just
we've
a
seen,
ballpark.
$10,000-$15,000, something like that, maybe less. You know, we've seen it all over the board. We've done it for $5,000 for an updated survey and a title search, up to $25,000. This is vacant land, right? So it's not like there's a lot of buildings on there and asbestos testing and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, we deal a lot with tear downs and things like that become more complicated. But as far as this goes, it should be a fairly slim and budget-friendly type of due diligence
And it
package.
depends how busy the surveyor is, you know, that happens too, so.
I'm gonna follow up, because I was gonna ask, do you handle that process? Do you send out RFPs to land planners and
Yeah.
engineers on our behalf?
Yeah, yeah. We work with it. We work with all the national, very reputable engineering
who
firms. We know who the best 4 or 5 are.
Who the buyers are gonna use also.
Right. That was going to be my point. The buyers. It's very important to select a firm that the ultimate buyer is going to just say, "Oh, that's good information," and I'll pick up and run with it. Trust them, pick up and run with them. Probably the engineering companies, we might be able to get some sort of discount on that fee because they love being attached to a project like this, because then it becomes, I know the most about this property.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
so
they get
hey,
the business
Mr.
at the end.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Developer, it's easy. I know all. You know, I did all the due diligence for the school board on this, and now you should use me as you move forward. And so we would definitely want to use a nationally recognized, it doesn't have to be national actually, locally or just a recognized engineering firm that these developers feel comfortable with moving forward.
And we know who they are, so.
Just to piggyback quickly, sorry, on that, with that that idea, because I noticed that in your timeline, which I really appreciate here, but you've got that phase or that step in that first month, I think, is what you have it timed for, and how quickly or,
You mean
know,
like a
how long does
survey
something
or
that
a
take?
land planning?
You have the engineering firm.
Yeah, that should take about a month if it depends. If we get kicked off now, we're going to get kicked off in January, right? So in January, that's fine. Maybe it's 5 weeks until we
Okay.
get everything back. It depends on what we ask them to do.
But we'll be putting the package together in the meantime too.
Right, and so it'll take that amount of time just to get everything going, but yeah, it might take 5 weeks, something like that, depending upon just the time of the year.
You touched base about being mainly residential. Now, with that property, how would that be sold, per square foot or per acre? If you
How
go that route?
residential property for a development usually is sold is on a per unit basis.
Per unit, okay.
Right, and it depends a lot, there's a lot of variables that go into it. Let's say, you know, Willow Springs wants a large road improvement or a traffic light on there. That unfortunately gets taken off the land price. So there's a lot of variables,
just
right?
work backwards.
So they just work backwards to say, okay, this is my base price that I think I can sell a home for. And they usually like to sell 1.5 to 2 homes a month. And so they set that base price based on that. That's called the absorption rate. And then we work backwards off of that to understand kind of what they can pay for a piece of property in a raw state.
And that's why it's gonna be a PUD where you're gonna have different pods, so there'll be different types of units. So if they can sell 2 units with this pod and 2 units with townhomes, 2 units with single family, that's why it's just not gonna be a straight 10,000 square foot subdivision.
There most likely
It's
will
gonna be
some
creative in some way,
product
for sure.
variation because of the size of the property. You also might see offers where someone says, okay, I'll pay you X amount, but I want 2 takedowns, right? I want to buy half of it subject to approvals, and then 2 years later, I want to buy the other half. Are you okay with that? Who knows? You know, there's obviously some risk associated
Yeah,
with
and
that.
we can talk about risk reward and.
Right. There's just a lot of nuances that go on
And
about
who
it.
the developer is.
But
Thank you.
yeah, it's on a per unit basis.
Anyone else? We're good? Thank you for coming out this evening.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, our next firm is NAI Hiffman, and the representative is Jim Adler.
Thank you,
Good
Dr.
evening.
Waterman. Thank you, Board. I'm also here with Chris Gary. I'm Jim Adler. We are both partners at the commercial real estate firm NAI Hiffman, based in Oak Brook Terrace. NAI Hiffman has been around for 25 years. We have over 350 employees. Our fastballs are property management and commercial real estate brokerage. We have about 60 professionals locally here in Oak Brook who do just brokerage. Chris and I are brokers ourselves. And I was reminded in a LinkedIn post a few weeks ago that this is my 29th year doing commercial real estate. So that's a little bit about me. I do also live in Western Springs. My wife is on the school board of District 101. We have 2 LT graduates, both in college now, and we have 2 LT students here today. Well, not today, but right now. And I'll let Chris introduce himself. Yeah, so my quick bio, give or take 30 years in commercial real estate. I've sold 1,100 acres of property. I'm not primarily a land broker. I do, my main job is industrial, but through that I've been involved with over 1,100 acres, not all industrial, some mixed use and some actual residential in there. I come from a long, big family of public school world. You know, my wife, my mother, my sister, and 2 sister-in-laws are all grade school, public school teachers, so they told me I can't mess this up. So hopefully that works well. And I live in Western Springs as well, and I've been involved on your side. I've been on the finance department for District 230, and I did a lot of work in the village of Orland where I raised my family before moving here. It's my background. In terms of our proposal, I'll try to be brief here. I think we're the last group we're talking to tonight. I know if we're standing between you and your cars, I'll try to be quick here. But we did a matrix in terms of what we thought the value range could be. We know that some of those uses are likely not approved, and so we identified likely not approved or just maybe just uncertain. And from that, we deduced sort of a value kind of range that we thought, but ultimately, as the gentleman before spoke, that outcome is probably going to be predicated on what a developer can ultimately develop. And so that's going to be a moving target as we go through the process in terms of the valuation. But we wanted to show that to you. And in terms of our process, we view, you know, the first step is to download as much information as we can from you, whoever has it, on the property and get all of our ducks in a row. We'd like to sit down with you and talk about your goals and objectives and timing and best possible outcome. We'd like to do the same thing with Willow Springs. We think, based upon the input that we get from Willow Springs and any stakeholders that are in the surrounding area, that we'll have enough and know enough to engage a civil engineer. I know you asked about what some future costs would be. That would be one of them that we'd recommend. And then with those plans, be able to put a significant offering memorandum. We have an excellent marketing department, and we would blast out to the community at large. We have broker databases of over 2,000 brokers in Chicago. Chris and I, with our 30 years or 60 years combined, know a lot of brokers. And I think that that's important because you need the Chicago real estate brokerage community to be aware of this opportunity and to put it out there. We also do the traditional blocking and tackling that you've heard about before, listing on all the listing services. And we have our own in-house 60 brokers who are working with developers and working with potential users of the property. And I think that's important too, to make sure that our own house knows what we're up to, and that we really put it out there on social media and however we can to promote the opportunity to the general public and the users at large. And certainly, you know, the living here for the last 6 years, I recognize that this is a lot of it's driven by the municipality, and there was a lot of seemed angst, as maybe that's the best word that they had, and so I don't know what they're really expecting for this, and that's going to be driving a lot of the value that you're going to try and capture, and you know, that's the $800 or 800-pound grill in the room, I guess, is as they sort of control a lot of that. And even within that, you know, when the people that live close there, everybody has their own vision of what they think it looks like, even though they have nothing to do with it. Well, but it's reality, and are they gonna, is the municipality gonna listen to those those residents, and maybe so. And so, you know, I've been involved with that a lot. I've been involved in a handful of like golf course projects, you know, selling golf courses. And oh my God, that's people that don't like the golf, they love having it there. Because it's so pretty and it's like all the Audubon component and the water features and things like that. And well, they don't play golf, but they like to have it and they come out and protest it. So how do you deal with that? Well, got a lot of experience dealing with that and trying to get the best, most highest likelihood of success to do this.
I'll mention one last sort of marketing initiative that we've discussed. I also serve on the board of an organization called Choose DuPage. And Choose DuPage is a public-private partnership with business leaders from the western suburbs and southwestern suburbs, together with Chairperson Deb Cronin and other municipal leaders, village presidents and mayors. The point of the organization is really just to promote all things west suburban, southwest suburban. I realize that this is in Cook County, not DuPage, but I think the rules still apply. Choose DuPage as an organization works closely with Intersect Illinois. They also work closely with GSEP, which is the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership. And they work with site selectors. So just in 2025, Choose DuPage received over 60 RFQs from site selectors from around the country, asking about vacant land, asking about property. And my involvement in that organization gives me insight and sight lines to some of those inquiries. Many of them will never fly on this site, could be manufacturing or whatever, but some of them might. It could be healthcare facility, it could be something for the community, that community related. So anyway, it's just one more marketing concept that we wanted to employ as we go through the process.
Okay. Thank you. And again, same three questions. You touched on some of these already, so anything that you left out, how will you market the property locally or nationally?
You know, I mean, the blocking and tackling, you know, it sounds great to have this global reach. In my opinion, there's without question, it's going to be a local developer. And I don't mean local, it's going to be within, 3 miles of here. It's going to be Chicago. Chicago is one of the biggest markets in the world, and all the main players are here already. And those are the guys that they don't mind tackling a complicated project that maybe there's going to be a little bit of problematic issues with the municipal side of it. You know, they're the ones that are going to pay the highest number. When you're talking about a group out of San Diego that's doesn't have any basis here, like, well, they'll throw a maybe if they can get it, but are they going to pay the highest and best, and are they going to be dedicated? No, I want this site because this is exactly what I need. And do they have history here in South Cook? And there are groups like that, and we have a big track record of doing that. I mean, I do feel that it's going to come from the people that we contact directly, locally. It's not going to be an email from Singapore. It's going to be somebody from here. It's my opinion.
And then, do you see any potential conflicts of interest marketing our property?
No.
And then, are there any expenses that we could incur outside the proposal, not including anything that we can expect with the closing?
I think our colleagues at CB, it's pretty much the same process, and we would propose the same issues, land use consultants and things like that. Anything you can do to get it ready, teed up, that can be sold. And again, for us pursuing, hey, let's talk to data center guys. Well, you know what? Maybe data center guys can't come here. There's not enough power. There's not enough fiber. All those things. I'm like, well, you're wasting your time. So we want to do all of our due diligence up front as much as possible and seeing what'll fly and what's possible here. And that's the first step. And that takes a little bit. A lot of it's land use and civil engineers and things of that nature.
Good. Thank you. Any questions?
I do. I have one. On your proposal, I'm just going to read it here. It says, opportunities use tax incentives given the large-scale proposed job creation that may be tax incentives to enhance the financial viability and attractiveness of the site. That to me sounds like, so as the board, I think we have to look at obviously selling it to the right buyer to get money to come into the school district, then also potentially somebody that's going to be there giving us tax revenue too. So are the tax incentives harming us potentially and not getting taxing from the buyer? Help me understand how those tax incentives work, potentially.
Because we made this matrix of lots of different uses, each developer has a different incentive that they approach, right? And like, for example, not that this will be an industrial site, but in Cook County, there's almost 0% chance that a developer will develop in Cook County without, Class 8, designation beforehand. Because otherwise, the property tax just kills what they can turn around and lease the building to tenants. It kills it, right? And because you're talking literally less than a mile away, the taxes are, in Cook County, it's 2.5 times the rate typically. And so they want to be on par for that, and they make it so it's a similar number. When you start talking about TIFs and all those sort of things, it's to be determined what they would even ask for. And whether you give them to it or not do it, that gets baked into what the price they'll pay for it. Because, like CB
We
had
get the
said,
final say on that, not necessarily Willow Springs or the municipality that it's housed in.
it's that, and there's so many things that moving this process. Like, for example, I know that most school districts, they're not crazy about having single-family housing because it creates all these children that actually, from a financial perspective, it's a losing perspective. They had a whole bunch of little kids. Can we have 55 and older? Maybe. Like, maybe that's the best use. Is it going to be the highest dollar amount that goes to, on a land basis? Probably not. But this is the balance, and we can walk you through that. And how many are you going to restrict it to 55 and older? Are you going to seek to have a data center? Are you going to seek to have people love industrial except for the direct neighbors, but they don't have anybody sending kids here with an industrial park, and they pay big taxes, and that's a great use for a lot of people. But Willow Springs, I don't know. I mean, I haven't talked to them directly. They have a big component of what they do, industrial, just a mile to the west of there. And Burridge has a lot of that, and it looks different. It's not truck terminals. It's not smokestacks and things like that. A lot of it's are lower density, so to speak. But those all have a number to it, and what you allow, and between you and the municipality, what you are going to seek. Again, single family, okay, you want to have 8-story apartment buildings, okay, that's a big problem for you. And so those are the questions we're going to ask you when, if we get hired. There's a lot of, there's multiple reasons what we're asking for. And they don't all align. So we need to flesh that out.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you for coming this evening. Appreciate your time.
You want to come to the table, James? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would probably be helpful. I guess what I would say is, as I said to you guys last week, my recommendation tonight was listen to all the firms present, and then you have a couple of paths, right? If, through discussion, there's 1 or 2 firms that you feel like you guys want to do a little more due diligence on, what that would mean is we would complete some reference checks over the next week or 2. I could work with James, potentially look at a legal review of the proposal and/or draft up a legal contract that you guys would enter. I think the whole goal is tonight is to start to narrow this down. If we walk out of here tonight and we're still interested in 5, and I should mention, so Scale, I sent you guys the email earlier today, they could not be here tonight. They still want to be considered as part of the discussion. So in theory, you have six firms. If we walk out of here tonight with the board interested in 6 firms, I don't know that that's a good path forward because then we wouldn't have made any progress. So my recommendation is to, through discussion, to try to get it to 1 or 2, potentially 3. I think ideally it would be 1 or 2, but James, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, we heard a lot from the 5 presenters, and I think there's a lot of information there. What I was going to suggest, and Brian and I talked a little earlier today, and this just popped in my head, so I don't want to be sandbagging right now. But, perhaps the board members digest what they've heard and then email maybe the board president, rank the folks that presented. and then we can tally that up, see who the top ones are, and then we're going to have follow-up questions with the folks. We saw some really nice presentations tonight. I think the question is really going to be how much we want to do in this. And there's some real good options. Some of the folks talked about the due diligence that is there, and doing it almost what I would say a little bit backwards, but in a good sense.
No, I think that's a great idea.
Um,
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, so that's what I would do, and then we can see if we're, once we get that.
For a theme, right? We can look for, see if there's some themes.
Right,
in
and
terms
then
of
we
the-
can start to talk about it, because, again, based on what was presented tonight, I think there's some options and ways you can go that, that are very interesting and may be able to make this a little bit, it's going to be a difficult process, but to make it a little bit easier on that, I also want to say we may slow it down just a bit based on some of the things I've heard today. But again, switching back to the beginning, what I would recommend is rank them, send them to Brian or to President Albers, and then we go from there, and then we can meet internally, start to talk about it, flesh out any additional questions we have based on those rankings, and report back at the 15th and kind of see where we're going at that juncture. Because, yeah.
I like that a lot. The only thing I would say is if there's something that you wanted to say based on what we had heard today that you want everybody else to know, now's the time to do that too.
Yeah, or yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so I guess kind of along that, I did have one question. Have you read all the proposals?
I have not read all the
Okay.
proposals
So
yet.
the question I have for you, and if you can get back to us, are all of the proposed fees that they have in line with how we need to work as a school board? Because it felt like a couple of the proposals clearly had an idea on how they need to work, and some of them maybe didn't go into that much detail.
Yeah,
I
that's-
just want to make sure that we.
Well, and that's what I wanted to flesh out.
Okay.
Apart from even if the proposal, let's just say someone submitted a proposal and it's completely, we can't do it that way.
Right.
But we really like them.
Yes.
I want to be able to go back to them and say, hey.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Mhm.
perfect, okay.
I like that.
That would allow us the opportunity to do that.
The only thing that I would question is, do we want him to do all that work with all 6, or wait till we get our narrowed
Probably
down?
not, like, I think kind of ranking a top 3, and then if all of us come back that we have the same firm as the number 1, then, okay, we're probably done, and now we can move on to the next phase of that, and.
Yeah,
go
that's
forward.
exactly what I was going to recommend.
Okay.
Right. There's no reason for me to read all 6 of them.
I did.
Yes. I mean, yes.
But we're not paying you.
So, yes, I am cognizant of that, so I,
Checks
yes.
and things like that, it doesn't make sense to do with all 6.
I
If we
agree.
if we can narrow it down to 1 or 2, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
And so to go on the record, as you said, open forum, I love the idea of the due diligence too, to try to just get as many of the issues that potentially could come up. And, you know, I'm gonna go by what they said, the $10,000 to $15,000 seems to be money well spent to do that.
Yeah.
And just so you know, we do, some of the due diligence they spoke of, we've started to do because we need to do it. You know, some of it's very basic. They said surveys. We haven't started.
We had actually talked about that here. You had made that recommendation, James, back in October. That we
Yeah, there's a lot of things,
we need to
that-
get started
basic
on.
things
At least
we gotta
those-
do.
The survey and the title.
Survey, title got to be updated, and then there's more advanced things, the phase 1 they talked about, and then even if you want to go with another step, there's some other interesting opportunities to pursue.
I was just gonna say, I had to do a phase 1 in August of 2023 at my commercial property. It consisted of 3 borings, a soil sample from each boring, and a groundwater sample from each boring. And that was $7,600. And I have like a tiny property.
Yeah,
So
it'll
I
depend.
don't know
Yeah.
that
Usually the
scope
bigger the
of-
property, the
Yeah.
more expensive, you know, a survey.
So just so people
Yeah.
don't have a heart attack.
And that's interesting that you say that too, because I wrote down here, if anybody remembers the Timber Trails property, and I think one of the holdups on that was, it was a golf course, a lot of pesticides, a lot of fertilizers. There was a huge blockade on, you know, the soil aspect of things. But this is undeveloped, there's never been anything there. I would find it hard to believe that they were gonna find much if, I mean, you know, what's coming from a school and of residents around. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe, I guess there's a golf course to the north of that, so something could have flowed that way, so, yeah, I appreciate that.
I don't know how many times you
but
have to bore in a
even if it's
property that size.
$75,000, again, I think
Yeah.
it's money well spent to
For sure.
try to check some boxes that isn't gonna slow up the process down the road when we.
And that'll all,
have
we'll
the
we'll
fire.
come back all and share those costs with you on, again, what types, there's different types of surveys. There's surveys that are less expensive. There are surveys that are much more expensive. Your Alta survey. So it just depends on how we do things. But yes, bigger properties tend to cost more, more soil borings, more things to go. So I would imagine it would probably cost a bit more than that.
I do believe that that property was used back in the days by an international harvester, so who knows if there's some stuff that they put, like you were talking soil samples, there might be something there. I mean, you're talking years ago, right?
And
But they might sit, I mean, that's a lot of stuff to look at too.
Yeah,
so.
and the
Right now
developers,
it's just trees, but prior to that.
right, and all of the people presented, I think they mentioned this too, and this I can tell you is my experience in working with schools is the more you can give them up front, the better, because exactly, and I don't remember who said it, during your due diligence, I'm not in the real estate, they do, but it seems to me they sign the contract, they have 180 days for due diligence, and they pick it up on day 150. And then they send an email, either, depending on how it's structured, saying we're going to terminate or extend, and things of that nature. So again, the more we can go through, and we can talk about how much, if money's no object, you can do a lot, right? But that's not our scenario. So how much do we want to do that to maximize it? And then you think you have some great opportunities here to work with some really skilled folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just would like to say that quite a few of these proposals really thought through what we asked them to, which was the approach, the timelines, and I very much appreciated that because it helped clarify and increase the value of what they were bringing to the table. So appreciate the recommendation, Sean, for getting us going on this phase of the work. So
I had no idea what we were getting us into.
and
Sorry.
thanks for your counsel.
Very good.
Very much.
Thank you.
Very good.
And based on that next step, I'll send you guys an email tomorrow with a little structure to it, to respond to Tim or I with, and I'll set that all for you. Don't feel like you have to go home and email me.
No,
or Tim.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that because we're processing
Yeah, a
a
lot.
ton of content here, in
Yeah.
addition to what's been supplied in formal proposal form. So, I couldn't at this moment tell you anything right now without fully giving it some good thought and sleeping on it, and not at 9:30 at night.
Yeah, right. No good decisions happen.
Where's our rubric?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Anything else, James, you can think of?
That's it, and then we'll reach out tomorrow, the next day, we'll touch base.
Great, thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
Have a good
appreciate
drive
it.
safely.
Thanks,
Thank
James.
you.
Thank you, everybody,
Thanks
for
for
coming in.
all your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Really appreciate it.
Okay, now it's time for a second opportunity for audience members to give comments or feedback to the Board of Education. We do not have anyone signed up. So it is 9:30 on the nose. May I please have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.